Monday. Happy Monday. The date. Okay. Happy Monday, y'all. Hope everybody's doing good. If you haven't hit the like and subscribe button, do that. Do it right there, right now. Real quick. Takes 2 seconds. Keeps us in the algorithm. So we are continuing on with our series of the government. We'll just leave it at that so we can stay in the algorithm. We don't get hit or bumped in the middle of this live. So what if these lone gunman stories keep falling apart because they weren't never meant to hold up? Hey friends, we've been tracking a clear pattern in this series, right? Case after case loaded with inconsistencies, strange gaps, official stories that smell like psyops, look like psyops. We've already covered Cole Thomas Allen, what we can so far. James Comey, David Morens, and still we haven't even touched on Brian Cole Jr. And how about Ryan Routh? The red flags just keep piling up, or psyops, however you want to put them. In my opinion, allegedly. Tonight we're going to go over Thomas Crooks, Butler shooter. We're walking through the timeline, the biggest inconsistencies, the shocking security failures. I'm not here to push wild theories, just asking the hard questions our government has earned after years of spin and manipulation, and the ones they don't like to answer. So again, please make sure you subscribe, like, turn on notifications. Let's get into it. Oh, and just so you don't think I spun a manly British accent, I have one that is reading the documents for me. So I can keep my voice. Maybe.
On July 13th, 2024, Thomas Matthew Crooks bought 50 rounds of ammunition. On his way to Butler, Pennsylvania, drove to former President Donald Trump's campaign rally at the Butler Farm Show grounds and climbed onto the roof of the American Glass Research Building less than 200 yards away from where the former president was speaking, where at 6:11 p.m. he fired 8 rounds from an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, killing 1 person and injuring 3 others, including the former president. That day, he was able to fly a drone 200 yards from the site, use a rangefinder capable of gauging the distance to the former president less than an hour before he began speaking, and bring 2 explosive devices within proximity of the site of the rally.
Is that reading too fast? Because I do have them speeded up a bit. If it is, just let me know.
The United States Secret Service's planning, communications, intelligence sharing, and related security failures in advance of and during July 13 directly contributed to Crooks' ability to carry out the assassination attempt and kill and injure people in Butler Park that day. On July 30th, 2024, Ronald L. Rowe Jr., the acting director of the USS, testified in a joint hearing before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee and Judiciary Committee that the attempted assassination was a failure on multiple levels. 3 acting director Rowe testified before the committees that he has since initiated several reforms to address clear deficiencies in how USS provides security. Protectees. In a 30 hearing, acting director Rowe acknowledged USS responsibility for protecting former President Trump. In a series of transcribed interviews conducted by HSGAC and the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, key USS personnel responsible, communicating and securing the Butler, PA rally on July 13, declined to acknowledge individual areas of responsibility for planning or security as having contributed to the failure to prevent the shooting that day. Even when, as an agency, the USS has acknowledged ultimate responsibility for the failure to prevent the former President of the United States from being shot. At the direction of U.S. Senators Gary Peters and Rand Paul, Chairman and Ranking Member of HSGAC and Senators Richard Blumenthal and Ron Johnson, Chairman and Ranking Member of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, Majority and Minority Committee staff are conducting a bipartisan investigation of planning and security failures that contributed to the attempted assassination on July 13, 2024. This interim report details the information the committee has learned to date, as well as the committee's preliminary findings. The committee finds that USS failures in planning, communications, security, and allocation of resources for the July 13, 2024 Butler rally were foreseeable, preventable, and directly related to the events resulting in the assassination attempt that day. The committee also finds that siloed communications and coordination problems between federal, state, and local law enforcement officials remain unaddressed and were a contributing factor to the failures at the July 13 Butler rally.
It seems odd, right? If you're protecting the most important person in the United States, to have this keep happening seems very odd.
On September 15th, 2024, a suspect was taken into custody in West Palm Beach, Florida, after being identified by USS hiding in a tree line with a semi-automatic rifle and a scope approximately 300 to 500 yards from where former President Trump was playing golf at Trump International Golf Club. On September 16, the Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, USS, and Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office held a press conference to provide an update on the investigation. On September 16, the suspect was charged with possession of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon, among other charges. According to the complaint, the suspect's mobile phone was in the vicinity of the area along the tree line for approximately 12 hours prior to the incident. The FBI has said it is investigating the incident as an apparent assassination attempt. The committee has requested briefings from the USS and the FBI. The committee will be pursuing additional information from the USS, FBI, and other relevant federal agencies as the committee continues its investigation.
Which, by the way, I also have the court documents on said guy in Florida, Ryan Routh, and he has been convicted, found guilty. So yes, again, the Secret Service looked up and seen a firearm barrel poking out of the tree line and fired a shot. And then a witness seen somebody running.
Committee actions to date. On July 15, 2024, Chairman Peters and Ranking Member Paul announced their investigation into the assassination attempt on former President Trump and called for a briefing and public hearing within 15 days. On July 24 and 25, 2024, Chairman Peters and Blumenthal and Ranking Members Paul and Johnson sent 10 letters requesting documents and information to the USS, FBI, Department of Homeland Security Office of Intelligence and Analysis, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, Beaver County District Attorney, Butler County District Attorney, Butler County Sheriff, Butler Township Police Department, Pennsylvania State Police, and Clairton Sportsman's Club, as well as a letter requesting voluntary transcribed interviews with USS individuals responsible for planning and security on July 13.13. On July 25, 2024, Acting USS Director Rowe and FBI National Security Branch Executive Assistant Director Wells provided a closed-door unclassified briefing for HSGAC and Judiciary Committee members. Acting Director Rowe and FBI Deputy Director Paula Bate testified at a joint public hearing before the Senate HSGAC and Judiciary Committees on August. Secretary Mayorkas and FBI Director Ray, seeking additional information about the July 12, 2024 arrest of Asif Merchant for allegedly orchestrating a politicians, and any information related to security decisions made by the USSS in advance of July 13. As part of its bipartisan investigation, committee staff traveled to Butler, PA on July 26.
So I will also state that the only reason we have this report or narrative that is available on Thomas Crooks or about is because they demanded something. They have not answered any questions about any of it. Not even to the victims or their families.
To conduct a site visit walkthrough of the Butler Farm Show and AGR building and receive briefings from local law enforcement officials. Specifically, committee staff spoke with law enforcement officials from Butler and Beaver County's emergency services units that provided support to USS on July 13, including the local snipers posted in the AGR building that day. During the visit, committee staff examined the roof and interior of the AGR building with those officials. The committee has also interviewed 4 local law enforcement officers who provided support on July 13, the president of the Clairton Sportsman's Club, and 2 rally attendees. The committee has also examined state and local operational plans and other related information provided by PSP, Butler County ESU, and Beaver County ESU, reviewed local radio communications on July 13 provided by Butler County Emergency Services, and reviewed body-worn camera footage provided by Butler Township Police Department. The committee has also reviewed transcripts and audio recordings of several PSP interviews of state and local law enforcement officials who helped provide support on July 13. On August 13, 2024, the committee began a series of transcribed interviews with USS personnel. To date, committee staff have examined over 2,800 pages of documents provided by USS and conducted 12 transcribed interviews with USS personnel responsible for the planning and security in Butler, PA on July 13, 2024. As discussed at the conclusion of this interim report, key requests to FBI, DHS, ATF, and USS remain outstanding. The majority of documents provided by the USS and DHS are heavily redacted. This has unnecessarily hindered the committee's ability to carry out its constitutional authority to investigate and acquire information necessary to identify needed reforms. These overly burdensome redactions, including of communications related to the same individuals who the committee interviewed, only serve to delay the committee's ability to conduct these interviews and carry out its investigation efficiently and effectively. Despite these impediments, the committee recognized the need to conduct transcribed interviews with USSS personnel as soon as possible before memories faded. In addition, as detailed in the report below, several USSS individuals responsible for planning and security for the July 13 rally provided contradictory or incomplete information, some of which ran counter to responses from state and local law enforcement officials and even other USSS personnel. This interim report highlights preliminary findings based on the committee's transcribed interviews and the limited document productions it has received to date. These preliminary failures and findings consider the actions of the USSS in the period leading up to the July 13 assassination attempt. They do not consider the extent to which other agencies or individuals may have contributed to these events, if at all. The committee is choosing to present these preliminary findings while its investigation remains ongoing to ensure that the public has the most accurate and up-to-date information. The committee will continue to pursue all information it deems necessary to carry out its oversight responsibilities and will, if necessary, take steps to ensure that it obtains the information it is seeking. Key failures. 1. USS failed to clearly define responsibilities for planning and security at the July 13 rally. USS personnel responsible for planning in advance of the July 13 rally denied that they were individually responsible for planning or security failures and deflected blame. USSS advance agents told the committee that planning and security decisions were made jointly, with no specific individual responsible for approval. 1 and 2. USS failed to ensure the AGR building was effectively covered. 3. USS failed to effectively coordinate with state and local law enforcement. USS identified the AGR building as a concern due to the line of sight from the roof to the stage, but did not take steps to ensure sufficient security measures were in place. USS knew that local snipers planned to set up inside the AGR.
Sound familiar? Reading a little bit like Charlie Kirk, security.
Building, and USS did not express objections or concerns about that placement. USS personnel, including the USS counter-sniper team leader, did not enter the AGR building or go on the roof prior to the shooting. One USSS counter-sniper team, whose responsibility included scanning the area around the AGR building for threats, had an obstructed view of the AGR roof. USS did not give state or local partners specific instructions for covering the AGR building, including the positioning of local snipers. USS did not adequately consider state and law enforcement operational plans. Communications at the July 13 rally was siloed, and USS did not ensure it could share information with local law enforcement partners in real time. USS failed to provide resources for the July 13 rally that could have enhanced security. USS denied specific requests for additional counter-unmanned aircraft systems capabilities and a counter-assault team liaison. A USSS counter-surveillance unit, which could have helped patrol the outer perimeter that included the AGR building, was not requested by USSS advance agents. 5. USS failed to communicate information about the suspicious person to key personnel, and failed to take action to ensure the safety of former President Trump. At approximately 5:45 p.m., USSS personnel were notified that local law enforcement observed a suspicious person with a rangefinder near the AGR building. By 5:52 p.m., at least 8 USSS personnel had been informed. Approximately 2 minutes before shots were fired, the USSS security room located on the rally grounds was told that there was an individual on the roof of the AGR building. Shortly before shots were fired, a USSS counter-sniper observed local officers running towards the AGR building with guns drawn. Second, findings and recommendations. Findings. As detailed below and throughout this report, the committee has identified several key findings as part of its ongoing investigation. 1. USS personnel were notified of a suspicious person with a rangefinder around the AGR building approximately 27 minutes before the shooting. The report of a suspicious person with a rangefinder near the AGR building was relayed to the USSS security room at approximately 5:44 p.m. and to the USSS counter-sniper team leader at 5:45 p.m. Shortly after, USS personnel, including a counter-sniper response agent, engaged in an on-the-ground effort to locate the individual. However, the USSS lead advance agent, site agent, and site counterpart all told the committee they did not receive this information and therefore did not know local law enforcement had identified a suspicious person with a rangefinder, and that those local officers later lost track of this individual, until after shots were fired. 2. USS was notified about an individual on the AGR roof approximately 2 minutes before Crooks fired from the AGR roof. 3 minutes before shots were fired, a local law enforcement officer sent out a radio alert that there was an individual on the AGR roof. This information was passed to the USSS security room. Approximately 2 minutes before Crooks fired, approximately 22 seconds before Crooks fired, A local officer sent out a radio alert that the individual on the AGR roof was armed, but that was not relayed to key USS personnel that the committee spoke with. 3. Shortly before shots were fired, a USS counter-sniper saw local law enforcement running toward the AGR building with their guns drawn. But he did not alert former President Trump's protective detail to remove him from the stage. The USS counter-sniper told the committee that while seeing officers with their guns drawn elevated the threat level, the thought to notify someone to get Trump off the stage did not cross mind. 4. USSS counter-snipers, including the one who shot and killed Crooks, were sent to the rally in response to credible intelligence of a threat. The July 13 rally was the first time a USSS counter-sniper team was assigned to a protectee other than the president, vice president, or a presidential candidate who had been formally nominated by his or her party. USS provided the counter-snipers in response to credible intelligence of a threat. However, FBI has said that Crooks was not known to the FBI prior to the assassination attempt. According to the USS Assistant Director of the Office of Protective Operations, a decision to assign counter-snipers to former President Trump's events occurred sometime in the first week of July. Of the USS personnel interviewed by the committee, nearly all, including the intelligence advance agent and the special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh field office, said they were unaware of any credible intelligence of a threat. 5. USSS advance agents for the July 13 rally denied individual responsibility for planning or security failures, deflected blame, and could not identify who had final decision authority for the rally. USS planning and execution of security measures for the July 13 rally appears to have lacked a clear chain of command. USSS advance agents told the committee that planning and security decisions were collaborative and could not agree on who at USS was responsible for final approval or decisions. USS advance agents interviewed by the committee could not identify who was responsible for determining the security perimeter for the July 13 rally. 6. Local law enforcement raised concern about the security coverage of the AGR building. A member of Butler ASU told the committee that he notified USSS advance agents during a walkthrough on Thursday, July 11, that local law enforcement did not have the manpower to lock down the AGR building. USS advance agents interviewed by the committee gave conflicting accounts and told the committee that state and local law enforcement were responsible for covering the AGR building because it was in the outer perimeter. Prior to the July 13 rally, the USS lead advance agent, counter-sniper team leader, and site counterpart did not go into the AGR building. None of the USS advance agents shared planning documents with state or local law enforcement, or requested state or local operational plans, and those plans reveal no post standers or patrol assigned to cover the AGR building or roof. 7. USSS had multiple line-of-sight concerns at the Butler Farm Show grounds, including the AGR building. USSS advanced personnel proposed positioning large trucks or heavy equipment in the area between the stage and nearby buildings to mitigate line-of-sight concerns. USS told the committee they relied on multiple measures in bleachers to mitigate lines of sight. USS ultimately did not use the trucks or heavy equipment to mitigate line-of-sight concerns from the AGR building. A USS counter-sniper in the Hercules II position told the committee he believed the mitigations were sufficient, and the USS site counterpart told the committee she believed they had a good security plan for the July 13 rally. There were two separate communication centers at the July 13 rally, one run by USS and one by local law enforcement. The posts were anywhere from 120 to 300 yards apart from each other, and the primary means of communication between the posts was by cell phone. Local law enforcement and USS operated on separate radio channels. All of the local channels were recorded on July 13, but USS radio transmissions were not. Crooks was in the USSS counter-sniper sights for mere seconds before he fired at Crooks. The USS partner of the USS counter-sniper who shot Crooks told the committee he observed that mere seconds after his partner identified Crooks in his sights, the USS counter-sniper fired at Crooks. USS counter-snipers confirmed to the committee that they did not require permission before they fired. 10. USS advance agents requested additional resources that would have been helpful, but those assets were denied. The USS CUA's operator told the committee he requested additional CUA's equipment and personnel in the days before the rally. However, these requests were denied at times without explanation. The USS lead advance agent told the committee former President Trump's USS detail requested counter-assault team liaisons to help coordinate tactical assets in advance of the July 13 rally, but USS denied this request. The USSS site agent and the site counterpart told the committee that a counter-surveillance unit would have been helpful, but this asset is typically not provided for a former president, and USS advance agents did not request a counter-surveillance unit for the July 13 rally. USS EUS system experienced technical problems after Crooks flew his drone near the rally site.
I hate to sound all Charlie Kirkish, but it sounds like Brian Harpole's interview came straight out of this assessment, in my opinion, allegedly.
The USS agent responsible for overseeing the CUS capabilities at the July 13 rally, 888 tech support hotline, to start troubleshooting with the company, which took several hours. That agent had only 3 months of experience working with that equipment and lacked knowledge about it. 12. Several USSS officials reported experiencing technical problems with their radios at the rally and told the committee such problems are common for USS. A USS Hercules I counter-sniper was offered a local radio on July 13 but said he did not have time to pick it up because he was occupied fixing technical problems with his USS radio. In addition, at the Pittsburgh airport before the motorcade left for the rally, the USS SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office gave the lead advance agent his radio, because the lead advance agent's radio, as a result, did not have a working radio on him during his entire time at the July 13 rally, while he did not hold a post or a sector and was not part of any protective formation. He did claim that he was there in a liaison capacity. However, he did not have any means to communicate on the radio with his USS counterparts. Recommendations. Planning and coordination, Congress to identify defined roles and responsibilities for USS personnel responsible for advanced planning of any protective event. For all protective events, and specify roles and responsibilities between and among federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. USS policies and protocols should require advanced planning leads to request and review state and local operational plans in advance of any protective event to ensure a shared understanding of security responsibilities and vulnerabilities as well as other critical planning and security components. 2. Responsibility. In advance of each protective event, USS should designate a single individual responsible for approving all plans, including the responsibility for approving security perimeters. 3. Communications, DHS, and USS should ensure communications plans between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and first responders are properly executed and should ensure records retention capabilities. Congress should require that USS record its radio transmissions at all protective events. Congress should require DHS and USS to evaluate the steps it needs to take to ensure communications plans with state and local partners are fully executed when conducting law enforcement and/or first response activities at a given location. Congress should require that DHS and USS report to Congress any steps taken to remedy past failures to execute communications plans and to ensure compliance with those plans in the future. 4. Intelligence. USS should consider sending additional assets, including counter-snipers, to all future outdoor protective events as it evaluates intelligence and threats against protectees. USS should also ensure that the appropriate agents working protective events are informed of relevant intelligence and threats against protectees. 5. Resources. Congress should evaluate USS budget and resources. Security requirements should be determined depending on various threat levels, ranging from less severe threat environments to the highest level of security at national special security events. Congress should require that USS allocate assets and resources based on the threat level, not the position or title of the protectee. 3rd, USS planning and security failures for July 13, 2024 rally. On July 3, 2024, USS began assigning key personnel responsible for planning and coordinating security for former President Trump's travel to Pittsburgh and campaign rally on July 13 in Butler, PA. In interviews with the committee, USSS agents responsible for leading and coordinating the advanced planning for the July 13 rally provided contradictory, opaque, or non-responsive information about who was responsible for key components of the planning and security. In response to questions by the committee regarding responsibility for key planning decisions, the senior special agent who served as the lead advance agent for the July 13 rally stated, "I don't approve anything. I clearly just take the information that they have recommended and put together with the other information that's put together from the other advance entities. And those are all submitted to the field office and then submitted to the Trump detail, the candidate nominations operations, and then they go further to headquarters." In response to questions by the committee regarding responsibility for determining the site perimeter, USSS agents stated that these were joint decisions and no singular individual was responsible. In response to questions by the committee regarding responsibility for security coverage of the AGR building, certain USSS advance agents pointed to state and local law enforcement, but could not say with any specificity how the AGR building would be covered. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office told the committee that measures for securing the AGR building were briefed through the Donald Trump detail and not through the SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office, and the Trump detail and the USSS Office of Protective Operations were responsible for reviewing the plans. According to the USSS Assistant Director of OPO, the preliminary survey, which encapsulates the security plan, should get reviewed and approved by the local field office management in addition to the Trump Details Operations section. As discussed throughout this section, multiple foreseeable and preventable planning and operational failures by USS Crooks' ability to carry out the assassination attempt of former President Trump on July 13. These insufficient coordination with state and local law enforcement, the lack of effective communications, and inoperable CUAS systems, among many others. A overview of USS planning and security assignments for the July 13 rally. Prior to any event requiring USS protection, USS assigns an advance team to plan security and obtain needed assets to secure the event. USS's advance team for the Butler rally consisted of a lead advance agent.
Now, are we to believe that this is actually a new policy, or it needed to go before Congress or have some big special meeting or investigation? These people are not new. Trump was not new. This is an insult of our intelligence, quite literally, and a waste of resources and time.
A site agent, a site counterpart, an intelligence advance agent, and in some cases a CUA's advance agent, among other potential asset advance agents, depending on a variety of factors, including threat assessments. USS advance agents conduct a series of assessments as part of their planning and security. These documents, collectively known as a site security plan, include a preliminary survey, technical security division outdoor site survey, site security diagrams, hospital surveys, transportation documents, and counter-sniper documents. USS assigned the following roles to lead the advance planning for the July 13 rally. USS advance agents assigned to the July 13 rally. According to the USS SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office, USS received pre-approval for 18 posts, which were broken down into jump teams. 28. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office explained that for campaigns, a jump team includes USS and Homeland Security investigations agents, per a USS Memorandum of Understanding. ATF told the committee that there was an ATF agent present in his personal capacity at the Butler rally on July 13, but that ATF as an agency had no official presence at the rally and did not provide any security assistance before shots were fired. The committee has yet to speak with the ATF agent who was at the rally. Due to the size of the Butler venue, the USSS SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office requested and received additional USSS agents to staff the site. The USSS site diagram depicted below provides an aerial overview of the planning and security post for the July 13 rally, which are discussed throughout this section. B. Planning failures. Throughout the week of July 8, USS advanced personnel spoke or met with federal, state, and local law enforcement on multiple
Just so you don't get skipped past the fancy diagram. Looks like they had it all covered, but the one spot.
Occasions to identify available assets, plan security for the July 13 rally, and conduct site visits to identify areas of concern, needed mitigation, fence lines, and post positions. Most of the interactions between USS, federal, state, and local law enforcement were informal, and there appeared to be only 2 official or planned meetings, which included an initial police briefing for state and local law enforcement on Monday, July, and site walkthrough with state and local law enforcement on Thursday, July 11. The USSS advance agents did not document responsibility for securing the outer perimeter, the area outside the fence lines where individuals would be screened by magnetometers, which included the AGR building. They also did not share planning documents with state or local law enforcement, or request state or local operational plans. According to state and local law enforcement officials, USS received more resources than USS advance agents requested from state and local law enforcement for the July 13 rally. Multiple USS advance agents told the committee that they received fewer assets than they had requested from other USSS components. The committee also found that USSS agents involved in the planning process did not have a clear understanding of who was responsible for approving certain documents and requests. USS advanced personnel roles and responsibilities were unclear and lacked accountability.
I don't think so. I don't think so. This is not the first president of the United States. This is not the first time they're protecting somebody. It's very clear. It's only unclear when they want it to be unclear. That's, in my opinion, JFK, Charlie Kirk, 3 times on Trump.
Planning leads identified 3 security perimeters for the July 13 rally. The inner perimeter is moving 38, the middle perimeter, and the outer perimeter. The lead advance agent explained, we consider a perimeter for Secret Service. The perimeter that we secure is what we are able to secure with our laws and regulations that we operate under. The perimeter on the outside, although it could be secured in other ways, it's not necessarily as hard and as fast as having complete access shut off. 40. The USSS, lead advance planning agents, could not answer questions about who, specifically, was responsible for determining the perimeter and who approved the designation of the perimeter. For example, when asked who was in charge of determining the perimeter for the Butler Farm Show site, the USSS lead advance agent, site agent, and site counterpart each individually explained that it was a joint effort based on available assets. The USSS site agent explained to the committee it was a consensus decision, noting we work together as a team, and we submit to the who then sends to OPO and headquarters. The USS lead advance agent told the committee the advance agents put together a draft that is then raised to the and then to the Trump detail CNO's operations, and then come back down. 43. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office told the committee he was not responsible for reviewing or approving perimeter decisions, as he was not present for the walkthrough of the site on the day prior to the rally. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office told the committee that the reporting, operational planning, and overall approval goes through the Trump detail and OPO, not the SAIC of the local field office. However, the USS Assistant Director of OPO told the committee that, in addition to the Trump detail, the Pittsburgh field office supervisor and the lead advance agent are responsible for the security plan on the ground. 46. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office also told the committee that if issues were brought to his attention, he would be there to address them, but otherwise it is the detail supervisors who are responsible. USS failed to sufficiently coordinate with state and local law enforcement. On July 5, USS informed PSP and Butler County local law enforcement of former President Trump's planned visit to the Butler County Farm Show. USS did not share materials outlining their expectations, and according to state and local law enforcement planning. Meetings were disorganized and lacked direction. A PSP lieutenant involved in the July 8 planning meeting noted USS did not have answers to certain questions from PSP. A Butler ESU commander involved in the advanced planning described the July 11 site walkthrough as incredibly disorganized with no coordination. Really just people milling about. I felt like there was no plan. 51. Some USS leads participated in briefings by telephone, or not at all. While some key USSS personnel did not request state and operational plans in advance of the July 13 rally, the USSS site agent was provided a P operational plan. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office did not receive the operational plan. And the USSS site agent told the committee that state and local partners do not always send operational plans prior to an event. The SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office said he was not aware of any USS policy or procedure, or local operational plans. On Monday, July 8, USS held a police meeting led by the lead advance agent. Attendees included USS, FBI, and state and local law enforcement. During that meeting, USS explained what they wanted each agency to provide. According to local law enforcement, USS also did not discuss the site perimeter at this meeting. The Butler County ESU commander told the committee that after the police brief, a Butler ESU deputy commander contacted the Beaver County Emergency Service Unit to request additional assistance for the Trump rally, knowing there was going to be manpower intensive. On Tuesday, July 9, agents from USSP in Butler County conducted separate site visits at the Butler Farm Show and following their visits, joined together at the Butler Barracks, a local PSP office, to review the site on Google Earth. A PSP lieutenant explained, "We started just pre-planning the map. We were able to draw, the fence line, and then around, areas that would be of any concern and where we needed to make some. Tee some posts up, which we discussed at a later date. 62% below is the initial map created during a meeting." A PSP lieutenant sent this map out to the group, including the USSS lead advance agent and USS site agent. USS did not adequately cover the AGR building.
So as you see, this is their site map. It does, I mean, it seems extremely unplanned and for probably good reason.
USSS Protective Operations Policy documents provide guidance on how to conduct advanced planning and secure protective events for former President Trump. Specifically, USSS Protective Operations Manual states, LLL large events should be closely scrutinized by both the site agent and the lead advance agent. Attention should be paid to how attendees may gain access to the protectee. 66. Despite this guidance in interviews with the committee, USSS agents in charge of the advanced planning could not say with any specificity how the AGR building would be covered and who was ultimately responsible for ensuring the AGR building was sufficiently covered. For example, the USS site agent told the committee that other than the local snipers inside the building, she did not know how the AGR building would be covered, but understood Butler ESU would have coverage of building. 68. Butler ESU told the committee that they informed USS they did not have the manpower to lock down the AGR building.
Does it not sound just like Ryan Harpole being on Sean Ryan and the text messages between what we thought was Brian Harpole, but turned out to be Dan Flood, and Chief Long saying, "I got you."
But USSS advance agents told the committee Butler local law enforcement never raised these concerns. A Butler ESU police officer told the committee that during a July 11 police walkthrough of the Butler rally site on July 11, led by USS, he introduced himself to the USSS site agent and USS site counterpart, explained where our teams were going to be. "I told them that the area along the AGR fence line was a concern, the closeness to the stage. It wasn't a good vantage point for anybody to see, even from the venue inside. I explained to them there would be cars parking alongside the road because it was close and people walking up. The Butler ESU officer stated that they did not have the manpower to lock down this area, and the area needed to be locked down." 71. The Butler ESU officer told the committee that in response to these concerns, USS, specifically the site agent, site counterpart, and counter-sniper team leader, said they copied and they would take care of it. 72. When the committee interviewed the USSS site agent and asked about this interaction, she stated it was brought up to our attention that the local Pennsylvania State Police won't have the manpower to secure the building, and at that point our response was the Butler County ESU would have coverage of the AGR building. 73. Specifically, the site agent told the committee Butler ASU did not inform her they did not have the manpower to lock down the building. When the committee asked what steps USS took to ensure the AGR building was covered, knowing PSP could not secure the building,
Isn't that immediately a no-go? If all is not covered in this, I mean, they act like they don't boss this shit around.
Site agent told the committee, since it was on the outer perimeter, we did not discuss or plan for having a post stander or having any other asset other than the local counter-sniper once they decided to have a local counter-sniper inside the building for the day. 74. When the committee asked the USS site counterpart about local law enforcement raising concerns, she stated, "That was not a conversation I took part in." 75. The lead advance agent also told the committee she was not aware of local law enforcement raising these concerns. When asked how the AGR building would be covered, the lead advance agent stated, "My understanding was that there would be police posts in the area, and they would deter and enforce and mitigate anyone that tried to access the building or the area around it." 77%. Prior to the July 13 rally, the USSS lead advance agent, counter-sniper team leader, and site counterpart did not go into the AGR building as part of their advanced planning. On the day of the rally, USS did not sweep the AGR building prior to the rally.
What?
When asked by the committee who ultimately was responsible for ensuring there was no unauthorized access of the AGR roof, the lead advance agent stated, "There's no specific. There were several different plans in place, different pieces of the puzzle from the advance that all had their own stake in making sure that that building was not accessible." The site agent told the committee AGR building was not part of our site. The AGR building was not considered part of our perimeter. That building was not part of our perimeter, our secure perimeter. When we identify buildings and surroundings that of perimeter, that's more local law enforcement responsibilities. 81. When the committee asked what specific steps USS took to ensure the AGR building was covered, the site agent stated, since it was on the outer perimeter, we did not discuss or plan for having a post stander or having any other asset other than the local counter-sniper. 82. However, the U.S. counter-sniper team leader told the committee that part of the USS counter-sniper's responsibility included scanning for threats regardless of the location, including beyond the P emitter. The committee has interviewed 2 USSS counter-snipers and has requested interviews for the other 2 USSS counter-snipers that were assigned to the July 13 Butler rally. The USS counter-sniper team leader identified the AGR roof as a vulnerability, but did not ensure local snipers could mitigate it. The 4 USSS counter-snipers positioned on 2 barn roofs behind the stage played a key role in scanning for threats, including on and around the AGR building. In interviews with the committee, the USSS counter-sniper team leader stated that part of his job in the advanced planning for the event was to identify and mitigate potential vulnerabilities or threats, and that he identified the AGR building, with its line of sight, from the roof to the stage, as one such vulnerability. He further stated in his interview that a key component of his plan to mitigate the AGR building vulnerability was himself and his partner in the Hercules 1 position on the southern barn. The image below shows the positions of the USS counter-sniper Hercules 1 and Hercules 2 positions during the rally, the local snipers in the AGR building, and the likely route Crooks took across the roofs to get into position and ultimately shoot. 84% transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service counter-sniper team leader, Hercules 1, at 29. The USSS counter-sniper team leader
So this is the local sniper positions. I assume Crooks. Can't make this up.
created a planning document as part of his advance work for the Butler event that he and the other USSS counter-snipers would use for planning purposes as well as for communicating about specific locations during the event. The USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that when he went to the Butler Farm Show site on July 10 before the event, he identified where the USSS counter-snipers would be posted and took pictures of the approximate views the sniper teams would have from their postings. These pictures were incorporated in planning documents, like the image below, to be used by the USSS counter-sniper teams during the event, and included potential areas of vulnerabilities such as the AGR building. This image below does not show the exact view that Hercules 2 had of the AGR building because it was not taken from the same part of the barn roof where Hercules 2 was positioned. The counter-sniper team leader explained to the committee that he took this picture while standing on the roof of the barn that was in the middle of the Hercules 1 and Hercules 2 positions. Counter-sniper team leader told the committee that when he went to the roof of the barn, where Hercules 1 and 2 would be positioned, and took the photograph contained in the image below, I actually wasn't looking independently at all the threat areas. It was more to make sure that the roof was secure for us to stand on. Up there it was really just officer safety. 92. This image below does show the trees that partially block the line of sight from the Hercules 2 position on the northern barn, to the right side of the AGR roof from which Crooks fired. The USS
So they took the pictures for officer safety? Shut up. Stop.
sniper team leader told the committee that when he initially went on the barn roof to take the photograph contained in the above image, I looked over at the AGR building, but I didn't really make a mental note of, hey, this is actually being blocked. It wasn't until later that I was actually doing the grids and doing a 360 that I went, I don't know if you can see that from Hercules 2, so I made note of that at the time. But Hercules 1, you had a clear line of sight, so I was okay with it. 94. When the committee asked the USSS counter-sniper team leader if he ever notified the Hercules 2 counter-snipers about the tree line obstruction of the AGR building, he said, I did not mention them that, hey, part of the building is going to be obscured from you. Through when the committee asked why the USSS counter-sniper team leader did not mention the obstruction to the Hercules 2 team, he responded, honestly, I just didn't think about it. This is one of the many threat areas that looked it. I wouldn't have mentioned that, hey, we can actually see the buildings on the left side, the private residences and the wood line, and you guys can't see that. It's kind of between each posting. When we're working together, we have full coverage, but there are certain things a certain post would see better than another post. The USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that if another USSS counter-sniper had an issue with their post, they could reach out if they had any concerns. But I believe they would understand I did the advance work. This is this line of we can't see a certain threat area. I assume that the advance did his job diligently, which I did, and Hercules, one could see the threat area. 97% after noticing the obstrees in front of the AGR building. One of the USSS counter-snipers on Hercules 2 told the committee that he and his partner did not notify the USSS counter-sniper team leader because it was assumed that he took the post during his advance procedures and chose that one, regardless of a line-of-sight issue with the trees, because the AGR building was to be secured by locals. 98. Local snipers explained to the committee they understood their primary areas of responsibility to be the rally crowd. The local snipers also explained that they were positioned behind windows and behind their weapons, which were approximately 6 to 7 feet away from the windows. The image below, created by local law enforcement, identifies 7 sectors of coverage responsibility. According to one of the local snipers, the committee.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The yellow being the main stage. Purple is parking. I honestly.
He interviewed, the snipers in the AGR building were responsible for covering part of Sector 2, Sector 1, and the upper portion of Sector 5. These sectors cover the approximate locations of the rally crowd. No USSS personnel involved with committee interviewed questioned the local snipers' decisions regarding these positions, nor their understanding of their areas of responsibility. As discussed above, the USSS lead advance agent, counter-sniper team leader, and site counterpart did not go into the AGR building as part of their advance planning. Committee staff visited the Butler Farm Show rally site, toured the AGR building, and examined the rooms and views where each local sniper was posted. During the tour, committee staff took photographs from the approximate position of the local snipers in the AGR building on July 13, 2024, 106, as shown in the photographs below. The local snipers had a limited view of the AGR roof based on their positions on July 13, 107. View from local sniper post in AGR building. The photograph above shows the approximate field of view from one of the positions occupied by local snipers positioned in AGR building on July 13, 2024, 109, as can be seen in the photograph. From this position, the local sniper would not have been able to see Crooks either during his transit of the roof or when he took his final firing position. Although local snipers would not have been able to see Crooks from their positions, they had access to a break room on the same floor of the AGR building. This break room contained a south-facing window and was closest to the location from which Crooks fired. The photograph below, taken by committee staff, shows the southward view from that AGR window looking out toward the rally site. View from AGR building break room. The roof visible in the foreground of the above photograph is the AGR roof from which Crooks fired. However,
So his view is from this window on the inside, and Crooks is supposedly over here.
this view does not show the actual spot from which Crooks fired, which was on the eastern side of that roof. In addition, as the above photograph shows, a local sniper positioned in this location would not have been able to provide coverage of the rally crowd, which was their primary area of responsibility. Based on staff's tour of the AGR building, it was possible for a local sniper in the break room to position themselves so as to be able to see Crooks' location on the roof while remaining concealed inside the building. In order to obtain a visual of that spot, a sniper would have had to go to the break room, press up against the window, and look eastward. The photograph below was taken by committee staff and shows that view of Crooks' approximate position from that window.
So, in my opinion, then that tells me that they were placed there on purpose so that they had plausible deniability. Period. This does not happen even on an attempt, let alone draw blood. It would have been unacceptable. Unacceptable.
View looking left from AGR building break room. As can be seen in the above photograph, a sniper who assumed this position would have obstructed their view of what was understood to be their primary area of responsibility, the rally crowd. Additionally, local snipers told the committee that their understanding was their role was to act as snipers, concealed within the AGR building and looking into the crowd within the rally site for threats, as opposed to counter-snipers primarily responsible for looking outside the site for threats from snipers on structures, such as the AGR building. As discussed in the timeline below, a local sniper in the AGR building was the first to spot the suspicious person with a rangefinder, which was relayed to USS. According to the Beaver County ESU commander, if doesn't give that first warning, however long it was, Nobody would be looking for that guy. And the two officers who fired at Crooks may not have been able to determine where the shots were coming from and to shoot at Crooks as quickly as they did, thereby preventing him from inflicting further harm on former President Trump and rally attendees.
Might I remind you, of those attendees, they didn't get just a graze on their ear. One was shot in the head and killed. Two others were injured, and one shot through the liver. But yeah, we'll make it about whose fault is it? It's not mine. And it's unheard of. There is no former president, to-be president, that has this kind of lax bullshit security detail, period. Never in history, unless it is some kind of shit in a game.
During the committee's July 30th, 2024 hearing, Acting Director Rowe presented the below photograph taken from the AGR building to show local snipers could have seen Crooks on the roof from their positions. USS Acting Director Rowe exhibit presented at July 30, 2024, hearing 121. This is from the second floor of the AGR building. This point of view is the point of view where the counter-sniper team locally was posted. The gold arrow indicates where the shooter fired from. Looking left, why was the assailant not seen? When we were told that building was going to be covered, that there had been a face-to-face that afternoon that our team leads met. This was the view.
Oh, Lord Diana. He's going to read that and he is going to be, where are you? In fact, Guy, I thought you were going to spam my chat. He's probably sleeping. It's funny. He's going to love to hear that.
Local law enforcement snipers stationed in the AGR building who spoke with the committee said that the acting director's assessment did not align with their point of view. When asked about the picture presented by Acting Director Rowe, one local law enforcement sniper stationed in the AGR building told the committee, "I'm not exactly sure where they took those pictures from, but like if they were taken from where I was, they would have literally had to been hanging out the window. Multiple law enforcement line-of-sight concerns were not sufficiently mitigated in advance of July 13. The USS site agent told the committee that the Butler County Farm Show site had many vulnerabilities, which included an airport hangar, multiple buildings, a residential area, rooftops, and empty buildings near the airport, noting so everything pretty much surrounding the venue, the site, was pretty much considered a line of sight or a vulnerability. $125, same-day SS and PSB, discussed placing farm equipment, bleachers, and other large trucks in certain areas. In an interview with committee staff, the USSS site counterpart said that by Wednesday, July 10, there were still line-of-sight concerns that needed to be mitigated. The USSS site counterpart tried to put in those positions that I wanted to block, those AGR building. 128 and involved in coordinating the planning and security for the rally stated. But in the end, to me, I thought from the way it sounded like there was going to be a lot more than was actually there. I think there was only a handful of tractors on this side and one combine right here. The USSS lead advance agent told the committee she discussed AGR line-of-sight concerns throughout the week, including the day before the rally. The USSS lead advance agent noted the rally site had still not been built out as of the time I left on Friday, and the second supervisors from the Trump detail were continuing to walk through the site and discuss line-of-sight and other issues. The USSS site agent told the committee she was not prevented or overruled in using heavy equipment or trucks to mitigate ground line-of-sight issues. Ultimately, however, large trucks were not used. The USSS lead advance agent said the Penske trucks were in the area at the time, helping with the build-out. Those trucks were not used. They continued to speak about some farm equipment that they had, the counter-sniper teams that we had in place, the police posting we had in place, the screens that were going to be in place, and the bleachers that would be in place that would all mitigate being able to obstruct line of sight from that area. 134, a USS counter-sniper in the Hercules II position, told the committee he believed the mitigations were sufficient, and the USS site counterpart told the committee she believed they had a good security plan for the July 13 rally. Resource requests for additional assets were denied and others were not made. PSP initially told USS they would be able to provide 10 to 15 troopers, but ultimately provided a total of 30 troopers, including 22 troopers on site. The Butler County ESU sent 3 sniper teams and approximately 20 to 25 officers. The USSS Trump detail requested specific assets for the July 13 rally that were not approved. These included CUA's and UA's resources, which are discussed below, and a counter-assault team liaison. President Trump's USS detail requested counter-assault team liaisons to help coordinate tactical assets in advance of the July 13 rally, but other USSS components denied this request. The lead advance agent also told...
I find that hard to believe. And I'm sorry, but does Trump strike you as the type of person that gets denied anything?
The committee she requested 13 magnetometers from USS, but only received 10.141. In addition, the USS site counterpart told the committee that having a counter-surveillance unit would have been helpful, and she was surprised USS did not have a CSU for an outdoor event. A CSU team is used to identify and observe outer perimeter areas from which significant threats could originate. 143, the USSS Assistant Director of OPO also told the committee that a large outdoor venue would lend itself for requesting a CSU-type asset, and that a CSU may have helped because an area of focus for CSU is to look for that pre-attack behavior. The USS site agent also told the committee having a CSU asset would have been helpful for the July 13 rally. While former President Trump did not have a CSU for the outdoor rally that was expected to have 15,000 attendees on July 13, the First Lady did have a CSU assigned for her indoor event in the same area at 410 expected attendees. According to the USSS site counterpart, the First Lady regularly receives CSU.
Again, sounds selective to me. Right. It would have been a no-go, period. He was not going to, Trump would not have had that. His Secret Service wouldn't have had it. It would have been, we're not going. He'd have threw a tantrum, whatever.
The lead advance agent told the committee she was not aware of any discussions to request a CSU for the July 13 rally, noting it's not a typical asset for an advance for a former president that I had worked at that time. 148. The site counterpart for the July 13 rally noted that advance agents often already know what assets will be provided before putting in a request. A lot of times I think it is like, you can make the request, but you know what you're going to get, explaining, we have limited, manpower, limited resources. Especially during a campaign, it's always an issue, resources and manpower. 149. The fact that USS was responsible for providing security for two protectees in the Pittsburgh area on July 13, former President Trump's event in Butler and the First Lady's event in the city of Pittsburgh, resulted in shared USS assets at the Pittsburgh airport. Although the site counterpart for the Butler rally acknowledged that resources could be strained by asset sharing between protectees, she told the committee that she was confident that there was not going to be any resource issues during this specific arrangement because she had previously worked with the local law enforcement entity providing the shared coverage. She said that if any issues did arise, I think it would have been an easy and quick adjustment if needed. When asked if protective glass had been discussed for the July 13 event, the site agent told the committee that on protective events she had worked, former presidents typically did not have this asset. The agent added that, in her opinion, definitely would be beneficial to have protective glass. 153. Errors in security planning documents. At least two documents that USSS officials created detailing security specifications and asset postings for the July 13 rally contained errors regarding the positions of the local counter-snipers at the event. One document, the preliminary survey, which contains information about the positions of assets, radio frequencies, and many other items, contained inaccurate information regarding the positions of the local counter-snipers at the July 13 rally.
Odd. Inaccurate information? No way in hell. These people know their job down to a science, down to a T. Every single detail. Without doubt. And their radio, some of the radios didn't work. I think not. No.
In an interview with the committee, the USSS site agent for the July 13 rally who contributed to the preliminary survey acknowledged that the accuracy of the document is important. In the document, it stated local CS team barn roof. 156, when asked about the accuracy of that information, the site agent acknowledged that this was not the actual position of the local counter-sniper teams. The agent continued, NCE, the paperwork is submitted. We normally brief during the post-standard briefing to make sure that everybody is aware of tactical assets or special tacticals from local law enforcement. And that was briefed as part of, if there's any corrections or anything that needs to be addressed prior to the visit, or even during the post-standard briefing, which is what we did once we noticed that there was some misinformation, or not, something that was not correct. We make sure that we brief that during the day of the visit to ensure that everybody is aware of tactical elements or positioning of local assets. Another document, the site diagram, which contains overhead images of site venues and lists assets for those venues, also contains similar, inaccurate information listing local CS team barn roof. 159, the site agent, who also contributed to this document, confirmed that the location of the local counter-sniper teams presented in this site diagram was also not accurate. The site agent submitted this paperwork with the errors to the lead advance agent for the July 13 rally. The lead advance agent supervisor did not review the preliminary survey until after it had already been approved and submitted. 162, the lead advance agent did not catch the error before she submitted the document to the Trump detail. The lead advance agent told the committee, however, I put those together with the best of my ability, I observed them, and those errors that were found were addressed when they were found. 164, the lead advance agent stated, I did review. There was information that I missed on the page, and that was corrected in a briefing that happened later that evening, and that he counter-sniper advance sent an email with his documents, that had in the body of the email the correct locations of the counter-sniper teams and the sniper teams, and that was what was briefed 165. See communications failures. Multiple USSS officials, including Acting Director Rowe, have acknowledged communications failures on July 13.166. Several USS personnel at the rally have told the committee that they were not notified about the suspicious person with a rangefinder, and that if they had been, there may have been time to take action prior to shots being fired. The site counterpart explained, "There's a lot of things that could have been done, but it has to be relayed. It has to be communicated in order for those to be put in place."
Right, which is exactly what the person that's seen the guy said. He had sent multiple messages to multiple people, and these people snubbed their noses at them, didn't give them any information, no way to contact them, no way to... They didn't join together to do anything, and it's so clear. It's so very clear and disturbing. And mind you, this is all we have. This is the sum total of Butler, Pennsylvania. This is it. And it was like pulling teeth to even get these people to give this much up. So the families still have no information. And this is just Congress, concerned about Trump. Someone lost their husband, their father. 2 people were injured and no doubt suffer for the rest of their lives. And I cannot overstate, you can find absolutely nothing on Thomas Crooks. It's almost as if he's never existed. And trust me, I've tried really, really hard. I found the people they claim are his parents, but they don't appear to have, in my opinion, no children. It's all weird. It's all very strange. So I don't want to bore you to death with their excuses. So let's see if we ever get into a point where they talk about... So, I mean, we did not learn of the suspicious person. We know that to not be true because the cop had it in text message.
At the July 13 rally, the USS operated at least 3 radio channels, each designated for different categories of personnel. PSP operated on 2 radio channels, a primary channel that all PSP officers were instructed to monitor, and a secondary channel. Local law enforcement operated on 3 radio channels on July 13, a tactical channel for local snipers and members of the Quick Response Force and counter-assault teams, a patrol channel for local poststanders and patrol officers, and a 3rd channel for members of the Butler County Sheriff's Department. USS uses encrypted radio frequencies, which are not accessible without a USSS-issued radio. According to Butler County ESU police officers, no local law enforcement officials were given a USS radio on July 13, and no one from USS had a Butler County-issued radio. Similarly, all of the USSS personnel the committee interviewed stated that they did not personally have a local radio or access to local radio channels. Based on its interviews with USSS personnel and local law enforcement, the committee could not confirm anyone in USS had a local radio, nor any local law enforcement had a USSS radio. Several USSS personnel told the committee that it is a common practice to exchange radios with local partners to facilitate communications during protective events.
Imagine.
However, they noted that it is not a required practice, and it is more common when tactical officers conduct on-site advance work for several days prior to a protective event, which was not the case for the July 13 rally. One USSS officer the counter-sniper radio on July 13, but he did not pick it up. The counter-sniper team leader told the committee that when he met with local snipers at the rally, they offered him a local radio. Counter-sniper team leader and Butler County ESU officials. He did not pick up a local radio that day. The counter-sniper team leader told of time due to technical issues with his USSS radio he needed to resolve first. He explained that by the time those problems were addressed, he needed to get into his assigned position on the barn roof. In addition to radio exchanges, USS officials noted that another common practice for facilitating communications is for USS and local law enforcement to co-locate or embed tactical personnel. On July 13, a Butler ESU tactical officer was embedded with the USSS counter-assault team, meaning he was stationed in close proximity to them throughout the day. Both USSS counter-assault team members told the committee that a primary purpose of having the local officer embedded with them was to ensure they had a direct line of communication with local tactical assets.
I'm sorry, but if I am any of these officers or Secret Service and it's my job to protect the would-be president, no way in hell am I getting up on a roof or going anywhere if I did not pick up my radio. It just does not happen.
Several USSS personnel the committee spoke to explain that a command post or security room is used at protectee events to facilitate communications among USS, as well as between the USS and its state and local partners. USS operated a security room at the July 13 rally, and Butler County law enforcement ran a separate command post for local law enforcement agencies. The posts were at least 120 to 300 yards distance from each other. The USSS security room and the local command post's primary means of communication with each other was by cell phone, not radio. The graphic below depicts the multi-step process for information to travel from local law enforcement to the USSS security room, as described by Butler ESU. The Butler ESU commander maintained radio contact with the local law enforcement officers working the rally. If he wanted to relay information he heard from local radio channels to USS, the Butler ESU commander would use his cell phone to call the PSP sergeant in the USSS security room. The PSP sergeant stated that he would then relay information verbally to the USSS security room.
Solid plan. So if they have some emergent information, Butler ESU commander then phones over to PSP, that then phones over to get the hell out of here. The whole crowd could have been dead by then.
Room agent, who had the ability to contact USS agents in the field over the USSS radio. The committee has not yet interviewed the USSS security room agent. Law enforcement officers routinely communicated by cell phone. Several law enforcement personnel at the July 13 rally also used cell phones to communicate. All of the local snipers at the rally were on a group text chain, in addition to being on the same radio channel. USS and local law enforcement officials told the committee that one reason text messages or email will be used is to send images or photographs. In some instances, such as between the PSP sergeant in the USSS security room and the Butler ESU commander in the local command post, cell phones were the primary or only direct method of communication between certain entities. As depicted in the graphic below, cell phones were also the primary method of communication between the local snipers, via the Butler ESU sniper team leader, and USSS counter-snipers during the July 13 rally. Text and email communication between local snipers and USSS counter-snipers, as described in more detail in the timeline in Section 4 below.
Does it sound to you like the local law enforcement and snipers were by far more concerned about safety and concerns than Secret Service was? And then you get the feeling that they were shunned or, treated like they were just local police. Right. Right. Just enough. It was like you could not have planned that any more better than what you are exactly right. Yes. That's exactly what it looked like.
Oh, the local sniper in the AGR building who first observed.
Mind you, while they're chanting, with his fist in the air and he's good to go, there was people over in the corner screaming for help for the man that was shot in the head. I mean, you can't make it up.
Crooks with a rangefinder sent a text message on the local sniper chain with pictures and a description of Crooks. The Butler ESU sniper team leader, who was on the text chain, passed that information along to the USSS counter-sniper team, leader by text message, who then emailed the information and photos to the other USSS counter-snipers. The USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that relying on cell phones was not great, but better than nothing. 217, he also explained, radios are preferred. They're instantaneous. But they didn't have our radios. We didn't have their radios. 218, however, the USSS counter-sniper team leader also noted that if radios are being difficult, and/or there's just a lot of traffic, the cell phone is always an option too. 219. Radio problems added to communications challenges at the July 13 rally. The committee has been made aware of multiple instances of USS dealing with faulty radio equipment on the day of the July 13 rally.
Stop.
USSS personnel told the committee that it is standard practice at protective events to scan multiple USSS radio channels to maintain awareness of relevant USSS communications. However, the committee has asked for and not been provided all unredacted standard operating procedures related to communications. On July 13, the site counterpart's regular USS-issued radio was unable to scan, and it could only connect to one channel at a time. On the day
You stop the event and you say you're not safe, sir. People, you're not safe here. You don't continue on.
Day of the rally, the USSS site counterpart sent a text message to the site agent and lead advance agent, so I think my radio's screwed up, of course. I've had problems ever since I got the new radio. Been on the phone with the radio folks, and they think there is a problem as well. 222.
That sounds like it's a chain of excuses to be on the record of why shit went awry.
In another USS text message on July 13 at 5:13 p.m., a USSS employee, whose name is redacted, wrote, "I'm not getting good comms on either my phone or radio. I'll try to stay on 223 on the day of the rally. USS changed the post standards radio frequency due to bleed. Over from other radio traffic, meaning that USSS radios at the Butler rally site were picking up transmissions they believed to be coming from the First Lady's USSS detail nearby. USS personnel told the committee that this type of issue is common when multiple protectee details are in the same area. The two USS counter-snipers that have been interviewed by the committee both reported experiencing issues with their radio.
Common. Then that sounds to me unsafe, and measures should be took, or it should not be done at the same time. Right. Yeah, we're never going to see anything more than what we're looking at right here. They will never release anything else. This is all we're going to get, and that is because Congress demanded it. Because how many attempts on one president or soon-to-be president or former president in such a short period of time does it take before somebody's like, what the hell?
Radios at the rally. One said that the orientation of his USSS-issued radio antenna can affect the signal, and it can become spotty if angled towards the ground. He also recalled problems caused by his radio being in close proximity to his partner's radio while they were in position on the barn roof, saying the radio frequencies will sometimes cancel out, and one of them will receive a transmission, but the other will not. The counter-sniper team leader told the committee that he experienced interference on his radio channels and had to spend time troubleshooting, resulting in him being unable to pick up a local radio on July 13.28, the USSS SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office person during his entire time at the July 13 rally. The lead advance agent said that while at the Pittsburgh airport waiting for former President Trump to arrive, her radio dropped code, meaning she could hear some radio traffic but wouldn't be able to communicate back. 229, since the lead advance agent would be traveling to the rally in the motorcade and giving vehicle directions along the way. Her supervisor, the SAIC of the Pittsburgh field office, made the decision to give her his own radio. The SAIC told the committee T was more important for to have communications with everybody than for myself at that point. 230, the SAIC also told the committee that upon arriving at the Butler Farm Show grounds, he intended to code the lead advance agent's radio in the security room, but learned at the security room that the coder was back at the motorcade. The SAIC was walking back from the security room to the motorcade in order to obtain the coder when shots were fired. The SAIC told the committee that while he was in the Trump motorcade heading to the rally, he was riding with another USSS official who had a working radio, and that on the day of the visit and during the visit, I act more in a liaison capacity. I don't hold a post or a sector. I'm not part of any protective formation. 233. Instead, the SAIC said, I'm there just if something comes up, and somebody needs help.
For what? Why are you there if you are not there in any of those capacities? It doesn't make sense.
Or if there's something with our local or state partners or something else comes up, I'm there to help assist with that. 234, having given the lead advance agent his working radio and unable to code the lead advance agent's radio, the SAIC did not have direct access to any radio communications with other USSS agents while he was at the rally.
Convenient.
Responsibilities for the USSS security room were not well defined or clearly understood. In addition to a lack of clarity regarding how information should be shared between the USS and its state and local partners, some of the protocols and expectations for communications within USS were also unclear. While USS personnel the committee spoke to agreed that the security room was a critical component of the overall communications plan for the July 13 rally, they did not agree about who was responsible for ensuring the security room was functioning as intended. According to USS policy, the site agent is responsible for coordinating physical setup and staffing. 237, however, the site agent for the July 13 rally told the committee that she was not the primary person responsible for the security room's physical setup and staffing. She said that she was involved in the setup working in coordination with, but that the site counterpart coordinated equipment and ensured the security room was adequately staffed. In her view, security room equipment and staffing is a responsibility of the local field office, in this case Pittsburgh. When asked about responsibility for the security room setup and staffing, the site counterpart told the committee that the site agent's really responsible for making sure that the security room's set up and that there's communications.
So nobody talks to each other. There's no big briefing prior to, there's no planning, coordination, nothing. They just assume. Well, in this case, that's what they did. They act like they're new, brand new, on the job, first time ever. And that it's not a big deal. And it just so happens to be on a day that, they have a guy coming up to assassinate the president.
241. The lead advance agent told the committee that both the site agent and site counterpart were responsible for making sure that the site has adequate resources and everything that was part of the plan is in place. 242. She explained that during the July 8 police meeting, she had invited all state and local agencies participating in rally security to have someone present in the USSS security room. However, she stated that there was no specific follow-up regarding which state and local entities would actually be present in the security room. Some USSS officials told the committee they expected that local law enforcement entities working at the rally would have a representative in the USSS security room. But many were not certain about which local agencies, if any, were present in the security room on July 13 to 45. When asked how the USS was supposed to communicate with local law enforcement at the July 13 rally, the site agent told the committee, "That's the reason why there should be a local counterpart from each department inside the security room, to ensure that everyone has some communications and everyone is clear, on the same page." 246. I got him. USSS counter-snipers and local snipers describe line-of-sight and communication limitations. Radio logs obtained by the committee show that the local snipers positioned in the AGR building did not receive any notification on their ESU radio channel about an individual on the roof before Crooks fired, and the Beaver County sniper that was posted in the AGR building told the committee that neither he nor his partner in the AGR building were of anyone on the roof before shots were fired. The committee learned that a Butler Township police officer responded to the AGR building to look for the suspicious person and saw a person with a book bag running on the roof of the AGR building from the north
Sound
end
familiar?
south across the building. But he did not send out a radio alert about the individual on the roof at that point. On July 13, the 4 USS counter-snipers assigned to the Butler rally were split into 2-man teams, identified by USS as Hercules 1 and Hercules 2. The image below depicts the positions of law enforcement at the Butler rally, with 2 arrows pointing at the locations of the USS counter-sniper Hercules teams, Butler County ESU site map. As depicted in
So Secret Service, Hercules, Secret Service, Butler ESU, Beaver ESU, Secret Service, EMS Station, Butler, Beaver, Butler County. It seemed like the county and city were well prepared and just no communication with Secret Service for whatever. Well, we'll leave that up to the imagination.
In the above image, Hercules 1 was positioned on the rooftop of the southern barn, and Hercules 2 was positioned on the rooftop of the northern barn. The Hercules 2 counter-sniper team's responsibility included scanning the area around the AGR building for threats. The USSS counter-sniper team leader, along with his partner, were co-located at the Hercules 1 post. Although Hercules 1 did have a clear line of sight of the AGR building, the USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that the majority of his time he was facing basically the same direction as the stage. At approximately 4:45 p.m., the USSS counter-sniper team leader received text messages from a local sniper regarding an individual near the AGR building with a rangefinder looking toward the stage. The text messages included 2 pictures of Crooks. Within a minute, the USSS counter-sniper team leader responded, "Roger. I'll notify teams on AGR side." 255 then. At 5:52 p.m., the USSS counter-sniper says counter-snipers the information he received from the local sniper, with a rangefinder near the AGR building. Image of 5:52 p.m. USS email notifying counter-snipers of individual date attachments, local Saturday, July 24, 5:58.
You emailed it? So he says, from local police near AGR glass building. If spotted, please notify PI at go direct to a security room. Kid learning ground building we are in. What? I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards the stage. FYI, if you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him. Odd. So in reference to this email, one of the Hercules 2 USSS counter-sniper team members told the committee that this BOLO, or to be on the lookout email, was worded vaguely. but he and his partner continued to search and observe the site. The Hercules II counter sniper.
After we were searching for several minutes, I saw two white vehicles pull into the AGR parking lot, but they were obscured by that tree line that I previously mentioned. And from those two vehicles, I saw one individual emerge from the tree line, identified him as a police officer, and I couldn't tell why he was moving urgently. But I went over the radio with the following transmission. Security room from Hercules. Locals are working something at the 3 o'clock, approximately 200 yards out, 260. The USSS counter-sniper team leader saw local law enforcement running toward the AGR building with their guns drawn, but did not radio the Trump detail to remove Trump from the stage. According to the USSS counter-sniper team leader, as soon as he and his partner heard this radio transmission, they repositioned themselves to face the AGR building. The USS counter-sniper team leader told the committee, repositioned ourselves so that our tripod was on the center of the peak, and then we were standing on the farthest edge that away from the AGR building. So we were facing the AGR building. Had all focus on that building, around that building, trying to figure out what was happening. Placed our rifles in the tripods and started searching through the rifle scopes themselves. The USSS counter-sniper team leader could not recall the exact time that he and his partner repositioned themselves to face toward the AGR building. He estimated that it was close to minutes between the time he received the Hercules II USSS counter-sniper's radio transmission and when shots were fired. The Hercules II USSS counter-sniper told the committee that it could have been a minute or two between his radio transmission and the first shots. However, in that short amount of time, the counter-sniper team leader told the committee what he witnessed unfolding in front of the AGR building, when he and his partner turned to face the AGR building. Henry looked, just plain eyes, no optics or anything. You could see police running towards the building with their hands on their pistols. I think one actually had a pistol facing towards the ground out of a holster. That's a pretty big deal for us, so immediately we turned and faced our guns towards the threat area. We didn't know what was happening, but it seemed pretty serious, especially with the locals' response. There were police running, guns out, and there were a couple of people just running away from the AGR building that looks like citizens, I guess you would say, just normal people. So something was wrong. We didn't know what. But there was a lot going on in that moment. The police were the main identifier that something bad was happening. Despite this, the USSS counter-sniper team leader did not relay this information to anyone on the radio. The USSS counter-sniper team leader explained this decision to the committee below. Question. So why not, in that moment, send a signal or a radio call saying, do not let the protectee on the stage, or if the protectee was already on the stage, take him off? Answer, at that time we didn't know what we were working with. Obviously, police are running towards a situation. That could be anything from a medical situation to potentially a man with a gun or some sort of violent situation. We didn't know what we were having, and I didn't have enough to go over the radio with her. 266 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service Hercules II counter-sniper at 109. 267 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service counter-sniper team leader. 268 transcribed interview with USS counter-sniper team leader to notify USS to remove the protectee from a potentially dangerous interview with USS counter-sniper team leader to notify USS to remove the
Hold on, fella.
Interview with USS counter-sniper team leader to notify USS to remove the protectee from a potentially dangerous situation. There will be no questions asked, and that'll happen. 270. Based on the estimated likely route Crooks took across the roofs of the AGR buildings starting at 6:05 p.m. on July 13, the USS counter-snipers in the Hercules 1 position could have had a direct line of sight to him for at least part of his movements across the roofs. The photograph below was taken by committee staff from an AGR roof looking southward toward the USSS Hercules 1 position on the southern barn behind the stage. The AGR property is a complex of buildings with a series of connected roofs. Crooks fired from the AGR roof peak closest to the stage, and there are 2 additional roof peaks beyond that roof, all of which are connected and able to be traversed on foot. The photograph below was taken from the third of those 3 roofs, looking back past Crooks's shooting position and on to the Hercules 1 position. As the photograph below shows, the Hercules 1 position had a direct line of sight to portions of these 3 roofs. When shown the photograph above of these 3 roof peaks during the committee's interview, the USSS counter-sniper team leader, who was in the Hercules 1 position, acknowledged that with the view he had of the AGR building, if someone were standing on those 3 roofs or walking across them, he could have been able to see them. From our position, you should have line of sight, yes. 275, however. The USSS counter-sniper team leader and the Hercules II USSS counter-sniper said they never saw Crooks on the roof prior to shots being fired. Although FBI confirmed the subject's movement across multiple AGR building roofs between 6:05 and 6:08 p.m., the committee cannot know for certain that the Hercules I USSS counter-snipers would have spotted him if they were facing that direction at that time. Crooks was in the USSS counter-sniper's sights for mere seconds before he fired at Crooks. The 2 USSS counter-snipers interviewed by the committee both confirmed that the USSS counter-sniper team leader's partner on Hercules 1 fired his weapon at Crooks. The committee has requested to interview the USSS counter-sniper who shot Crooks, but has not yet interviewed him. The USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that prior to his team member firing his weapon, he distinctly heard 3 shots. 279, he then heard his USSS counter-sniper partner tell him, "I got him." 280, the USSS counter-sniper team leader stated, "I immediately gave him a wind call." When you're doing a shooter spotter, a wind call is basically any adjustments you'd have to make to the wind. But at 200 yards, it's minimal. 281, the CNTR sniper team leader continued. Rom there, I heard his round go off. I still couldn't fin what he was shooting at, so I got off my gun and looked to see what angle he was looking at. Figure out he was looking at the roof. Got on, and then I saw the target that he had shot at. The committee asked the counter-sniper team leader how long his partner on Hercules 1 had Crooks in his sights before firing, and he responded, mere seconds. The counter-sniper team leader fired only one shot at Crooks. Further, the USSS counter-snipers the committee spoke with confirmed that USSS counter-snipers do not need permission to fire at a shooter. They also said that no permission was requested or required during the July 13 rally. One of the counter-snipers on the Hercules 2 team told the committee that after hearing shots fired, he thought the partner was hit. Due to the proximity of these whip-like cracks 286, the USS counter-sniper added that after the shooting, he told the committee that he asked my partner how close he thought the rounds were to our left, and said, I heard them on my right. And there were approximately 6 feet between him and I. Transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service counter-sniper team leader, Hercules 1, when we were on the rooftop at the main site. The committee cannot confirm whether any bullets passed by any of the USSS counter-snipers. The committee has not yet spoken to the other USSS counter-sniper on the Hercules 2 team about these statements. Intelligence concerns. The July 13 rally was the first time USS sent counter-snipers for a protectee other than the president, vice president, or a presidential candidate, why his or her party. According to the USS Assistant Director of OPO, prior to July 5, the then Deputy Assistant Director and the SAIC of the Special Operations Division agreed that USS headquarters would send USS counter-snipers to all outdoor events for former President Trump going forward. In his interview with the committee, the USSS Assistant Director of OPO said this decision was based on several factors, including the size and scale of the former president's outdoor events, his being on the cusp of becoming the nominee, and threat information, at least some of which is classified. To date, the committee has not been provided any additional detail related to the USS decision in early July to send counter-snipers to outdoor events going forward, aside from Assistant Director of OPO's testimony provided during his transcribed interview. It appears that the addition of the USSS counter-snipers to the security detail at the rally was a direct result of credible intelligence. 291, however, only 2% of the USS personnel the committee has interviewed were made aware related to former President Trump prior to July 13, only one of whom was made aware of the classified information underlying the threat. A USSS official was made aware that credible intelligence existed of a threat, but still wrote in a security planning document that there was no adverse intelligence concerning the visit to Butler Parr. The USS lead advance agent told the committee that on July 9, 2024, she received a call from the second supervisor of the Trump detail, telling her that USS counter-snipers would be assigned to the rally. The lead advance agent told the committee that the second supervisor of the Trump detail informed her that the reason USS was assigning counter-snipers was because of credible intel that he could not discuss further with her. The lead advance agent told the committee that she instructed the second supervisor to call her supervisor, the SAIC of the USSS Pittsburgh Field Office, to discuss the credible intel, and stated 295. Lead advance agent, he said that there was credible intelligence that he could not speak about, and that we were going to get Secret Service counter-sniper advance for that reason.
What? What do you mean? That's the miscommunication, not the radios, can you say planned? In my opinion, allegedly.
Question, and did he say why he couldn't speak about it? Lead advance agent, because it was information that he wasn't able to pass. Question, did he say, lead advance agent, he did not use the word classified on the phone. But from my general knowledge, when you say that you cannot pass something on the phone, the understanding is that it's classified, and he can't speak about it on the phone. When the lead advance agent told the Pittsburgh SAIC that USS counter-snipers were being assigned to the rally because the second supervisor expressed that there was credible intelligence, she said the SAIC did not have any awareness of this information prior to their discussion. The Pittsburgh SAIC, however, told the committee that the lead advance agent did not relay this information to him. He said that he first became aware that USS counter-snipers were coming to the event through an email requesting housing for them. In an interview with the committee, the Pittsburgh SAIC said, Question, do you know why? So I guess stepping back, was that the first time you'd heard about even a request for counter-snipers? Pittsburgh SAIC, I did not even know a request was made. Question, okay. Do you know why they were sent? Pittsburgh SAIC, I don't. 295 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service lead advance agent at 44. The SAIC said if he had been made aware of intelligence regarding a potential threat, he would have requested more specific information about the threat and might have pushed for the event to be moved indoors if it was deemed too risky for an outdoor venue. Additionally, the SAIC told the committee that he would have requested more assets if he had received this information. Despite learning on July 9 that based on credible intelligence of a threat, USS counter-sniper assets would be provided for the July 13 rally, the lead advance agent wrote in the intelligence section of the preliminary survey document that, this time, no adverse intelligence has been developed concerning this visit. Any adverse intelligence that may arise will be passed on to all working supervisors. 303. Snapshot from preliminary survey intelligence section. In response to questions from the committee regarding why she specifically wrote that
I don't know if you can see it. It says, is the intelligence advance for this visit? At this point, no advance intelligence has been developed concerning this visit. Any adverse intelligence that may arise will be passed to all working supervisors.
No adverse intelligence has been developed concerning this visit, despite the information provided on July, the lead advance agent said. At the time I filled out this document, my understanding was that there was no adverse intelligence to pass on to the group as a whole. This is not all-encompassing as to intelligence, whether or not it can be passed. If it's something classified, such as something that was not passed to me to begin with, then that would not be put in writing as well. It would have been passed to those that needed to know in this situation. It is unclear who else involved in the planning for the July 13 rally, besides the lead advance agent, had knowledge of the credible intelligence. The Pittsburgh SAIC told the 301 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service SAIC of the Pittsburgh Field Office at 103. Committee that it would be his expectation that any credible threat or intelligence would appear in the intelligence section in the preliminary survey. Other USS officials involved in the planning of the rally told the committee they had no knowledge of any threats, and the FBI did not respond to USS intelligence request. The FBI has stated that Crooks was not known to the FBI prior to the assassination attempt. The FBI also communicated to the committee and publicly stated that the arrest on July 12, 2024, of Asif Merchant, a Pakistan national with ties to Iran plotting to commit murder for hire of U.S. government officials, was not connected to the attempted assassination of former President Trump. The committee has requested additional documents and information about this matter and has yet to receive a response. In public updates on August 28, 2024, regarding its ongoing investigation, FBI Executive Assistant Director Robert Wells also stated, FBI has not identified a motive nor any co-conspirators or associates of Crooks with advanced knowledge of the attack. And I want to be clear, we have not seen any indication to suggest Crooks was directed by a foreign entity to conduct the attack. Additionally, the FBI Deputy Director testified on July 30, 24, to the committee that there is an integrated relationship between FBI and Secret Service and every other federal, state, local agency you can imagine. We have constructs like the Joint Terrorism Task Forces and Violent Crime Task Forces. We're cross-embedded with each other. And when it comes to this event and others like it, we're always talking in advance. In fact, with respect, we did have a meeting between us, Secret Service, and FBI in the days leading up to the event to determine, assess whether there was any information or intelligence pertaining to a threat against the rally or to former President Trump or anyone else there. There was an absence of that in the lead-up specifically. And again, none of us had any information in our holdings with regard to the ultimate shooter. Nonetheless, the decision to send counter-snipers to the July 13 rally, which was based on credible intelligence of a threat, potentially saved lives. The July 13 rally was the first time USS sent counter-snipers for a protectee other than the president, vice president, or a presidential candidate who had been formally nominated by his or her party. On July 9, the lead USSS agent received a phone call from a supervisor in the Trump detail who stated there was credible intelligence that he could not speak about, and that we were going to get Secret Service counter-sniper advance. 314, the lead advance agent be relayed to the SAIC of the Pittsburgh Field Office, but it never was. USS has not provided the committee with any information confirming that this information was ever shared with any other USS personnel responsible for planning the July 13 rally, including the USS Site Agent, USSS Counter-Assault Team, Site Counterpart, Intelligence Advance Agent, Technical Security Division Advance, or the CUA's Advance Agent, or any state or local law enforcement officials. In response to questions regarding whether advanced planning leads would have expected to be made aware of any credible intelligence or threats, USS agents told the committee that information is something they absolutely should have been aware of prior to the July 13 rally. The site agent told the committee, as a site agent or lead agent assigned, you should have any intelligence or any information pertaining to an active threat to a particular protectee. Absolutely. In case that we need to take additional measures, or maybe plan for additional assets or additional resources for that particular matter. 313 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service Counter-Sniper Team Leader, Hercules 1, at 19. Transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service Lead Advance Agent. They're planning to have a protectee with 20,000 people in an outdoor event when there's an active threat for the drone attack. That was definitely one thing that obviously raised my concerns, and I know everyone's concerns. The site agent also clarified that the information about a possible drone attack threat was relayed to her in 2023.318. The USSS Intelligence Advance Agent also did not receive information about a threat in advance of the July 13 rally. The USSS Intelligence Advance Agent told the committee he did not know why counter-snipers were being sent, and he did not receive any intelligence on threats related to the July 13 rally, nor about the arrest of Mr. Merchant on July 12, the day before the rally. On July 10, 24, the Intelligence Advance Agent sent a letter to FBI requesting any intelligence related to former President Trump and the July 13 rally in Butler Park. The FBI did not respond to this intelligence request. A document from the USSS Protective Intelligence and Assessment Division, dated July 8, described open-source findings for candidate Donald Trump's visit to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. According to interviews the committee conducted with the USSS Intelligence Advance Agent for the Butler rally, having received no intelligence from headquarters, the Intelligence Advance Agent, called the USSS Protective Intelligence Division, asked if there were any updates and was told there were not. The site agent explained to the committee, normally we receive a bulletin with any information or any advisory information in regards to a specific visit, but not for this one, noting it came back with negative results, as no threats or no other issues or concerns prior to the visit. 300 and counterpart explained that she was never made aware there was any type of threat to former. 319 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service Intelligence Advance Agent at 30 to 31, 158. President Trump in advance of the rally 325. Without being briefed on any specific intelligence threats, the site counterpart assumed USS sent counter-snipers because of the size of the rally and venue. In notes taken after the assassination attempt, the site counterpart, why am I hearing that there were threats to the site on TV? How can the SAICOV not know about any threats? And why did they feel that only one part of was sufficient to cover it instead of the entire package? 327, the USS site counterpart explained that by entire package, she meant not sending counter-assault team liaisons, CSU, and other assets. Excerpt of site agent counterpart notes taken after the July 13 rally. Threats. Why am I hearing that there were threats to the site on TV? How can the SAICOV not know about any threats? And why did they feel that only one part of SO-D was sufficient to cover, instead of the entire package 7? F-counter unmanned aircraft system failures. At 3:51 p.m. on July 13, 2024, Crooks flew a drone near the site of the Butler rally for about 11 minutes. FSS actor Ronald Rowe testified at a Senate hearing that on July 13, the USS counter-unmanned aerial systems had technical difficulties and did not go operational until after 5. And that had it been working properly, E could have, maybe stopped him. 331. The committee learned that in addition to the CUA's technical difficulties, requests for additional CUA's equipment and longer drone flight restrictions were denied. Further, the USSS agent tasked with CUA's responsibilities at the rally had very little experience with the equipment he was operating. Requests for additional counter-drone equipment and drone flight restrictions were denied. USS TSD's outdoor site survey of threats and vulnerabilities flagged that the open farm area rally site is vulnerable to possible drone attacks with a limited amount CUA's equipment on site, as well as vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, both of which are items the shooter brought near the rally site undetected. The site agent told the committee that she was briefed on possible drone attacks in June 2023, but did not receive any briefings prior to the July 13 rally. Used CUA's equipment intended to counter the unauthorized use of drones the day of the rally. US has several forms of drone mitigation equipment available. An additional mitigation tool for protective events is a temporary flight restriction, issued by the Federal Aviation Administration, which bans all unauthorized aircrafts, including drones, from operating in a certain area for a limited period of time.
It's almost like the same playbook for Charlie Kirk, other than he's not the president, obviously. But it's quite literally almost the same playbook. And this explains why the entire FBI was wiped out and everybody changed. Because, when everybody has questions, those are the best answers they can give. Everybody got fired. He didn't care to say, he was going to brief everybody on what he knew. His FBI would tell everybody, and he doesn't want to talk about it again. Did not care one bit about maybe the families that maybe wanted answers. No.
Question. What is your understanding of how the CUS system interacts with the mobile cell networks? Answer. I don't know how it interacts with it. I believe that it does. The technical aspect of how it communicates to it, I don't know. Question. Okay. But is it your understanding that the equipment has to be connected to a mobile network in order for it to be functioning? Answer. I think it needs cellular signal to my knowledge. So if that's what you mean by mobile network, yes. 366 transcribed interview with U.S. Secret Service lead advance agent at 15. The CUS advance agent also admitted that he did not follow standard USSS protocol when he replaced the Ethernet cable with another Ethernet cable he found with the Trump campaign equipment. Question. The cable that you replaced to connect the systems again, was that cable Secret Service property? Answer. No. It was a Trump campaign radio and video, audio and video personnel. Question. Is that standard protocol to use a cable that isn't Secret Service property in this case? Answer. No. I just wanted to get the system up. The CUS system was inoperable until 4:33 p.m. on July 13.37:0. It was during that time that Crooks flew his drone in the vicinity of the Butler Farm Show at approximately 3:51 p.m. for 11 minutes while streaming footage to his controller. Even though this was not within the window of the TFR, Had the COA system been active and detected Mr. Crooks' drone, the Quas advance agent stated he would have sent USS personnel to conduct a voluntary interview with Mr. Crooks to determine the purpose of his flight. Acting Director Rowe testified before the joint HSGAC and Judiciary Committee hearing on July 30, 2024, that the outage of the CUA's system a lot of sleep, that the eventual outcome of the A-73. Acting Director Rowe testified that perhaps had the Quas system been operational at 3:51 p.m., USS agents would have spoken with Crooks, and he could have decided not to go through with his assassination attempt. Fourth timeline of key events at the July 13, 2024, rally. Known actions of the assailant prior to the July 13 rally. At the committee's July 30th hearing, FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate testified about what the Bureau had learned to date as part of its investigation of the attempted assassination. According to the FBI, Thomas Crooks registered for the Butler rally on July 6, 2024, 3 days after it had been announced. The next day, he visited the site for advanced planning and reconnaissance. 376 FBI said that on July 8, Crooks searched ADR International. 377% on July 12, the rally. Crooks signed in at 2:45 p.m. to shoot at the rifle range at the Clareton Sportsman's Club. According to PSP, on July 13, Crooks's cell phone data showed he was at the Butler Farm Show grounds between 10:58 a.m. and 11:50 a.m. He returned with a weapon and ammunition. At approximately 3:51 p.m., he flew a drone approximately 200 yards from the farm show grounds for about 11 minutes and was able to view the footage from the drone live on his controller. As detailed further below, at 5:32 p.m., local law enforcement observed Crooks using a rangefinder, a device used to determine the distance of objects, frequently used at golf courses and gun ranges. At 6:05 p.m., he climbed to the roof of the AGR building, where he remained for approximately 6 minutes, before firing 8 shots at the former president at 6:11 p.m., within hours of the assassination attempt. The FBI assumed the lead role as the federal law enforcement agency investigating the incident. The FBI identified the weapon used by Crooks as an AR-style rifle, and announced that his phone as well as explosive devices found in his car had been shipped to Quantico for forensic analysis. The FBI also reported that Crooks' social media history going back to 2019 espoused political violence. Crooks also prepared for July 13, searching online for details on how to build an explosive and researching how the rally would be set up. As of the publication of this interim report, the FBI's investigation is ongoing. 388 Special Agent in Charge Kevin Rodgick, Federal Bureau of Investigation, remarks as prepared for delivery. Prior to the Butler rally, Crooks had researched multiple political targets, including President Biden, former President Trump, the DNC convention, and the RNC convention. On July 6, the same day Crooks registered for the Butler rally, he searched online with the following entry. How far away was Oswald from Kennedy? 390. The following is a detailed timeline of events between the first confirmed sighting of Crooks by law enforcement and when Crooks was killed. And search for the suspicious individual on July 13, 6 p.m. An AGR sniper who had been positioned inside the AGR building earlier that day exited the building at the end of his shift and noticed a suspicious person sitting near the AGR building. The sniper texted the other 2 local snipers remaining in the AGR building. Someone followed our lead and snuck in and parked by our cars, just so you know. I'm just letting you know because you see me go out with my rifle and put it in my car, so he knows you guys are up there. He's sitting to the direct right on a picnic table about 50 yards from the exit. 392. FBI initially testified that the first reported sighting of the shooter by local law enforcement was at approximately 4:26 p.m. 393, however. FBI later stated that while witness interviews indicated that Crooks was in the AGR area at 4:26 p.m., subsequent digital evidence review shows the subject was in fact near the farm show airstrip, walking past a row of vendors outside the secure perimeter, approximately a half-mile away from the AGR grounds at 4:26 p.m. 394. Posted in a window inside the AGR building observed an individual outside walk by the window, who the sniper later determined was Crooks. Confirmed sighting of Crooks by law enforcement 1 hour and 1 minute before the shooting. 5:14 p.m. AGR Sniper 1 took a photograph of Crooks using his cell phone. That sniper later told the committee that he was not sure at the time why he took the photograph, but that something seemed off about the individual. 5:32 p.m. Observed Crooks looking at phone, news feeds, and rangefinder confirmed through binoculars. 5:38 p.m. AGR snipers. Kid learning around, believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking toward stage. If you want to notify SS snipers to look out. I lost sight of him. Also a bike with backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier. The text included 2 photographs of Crooks. 9 p.m. Shortly after 5:38 p.m., an AGR sniper went downstairs to the
Why does it say game time? Yeah, that it says game time first, and why is the other ones redacted?
exit of the AGR building in an attempt to keep track of Crooks. 5:42 p.m. AGR Sniper 1 radioed on the local ESU channel. Justin, for your information, we had a younger white male long hair lurking around the AGR building. He was viewed with a rangefinder sighting the stage. He was up against the building, believe he was looking up at us, and he walked around the side of the building. We lost sight of him. Also, there's a bike with a large backpack sitting beside it. It's parked in the rear of the building that wasn't there earlier. 402. 43 p.m. The Butler ESU commander responded to the 542 radio call copy. We will send somebody to check it. 5:44 p.m. The Butler ESU commander called a PSP sergeant, stationed in the USSS security room, who was his primary point of contact and liaison to USS. In a subsequent interview, the PSP sergeant stated he received information about a suspicious person near the AGR building, specifically a young white male, long hair, with a rangefinder like had been seen by the counter-snipers. And then he also said a bike and a backpack had appeared that they weren't sure was related, but wasn't there obviously at the start of the rally. 404, this was the first confirmed communication to USS about Crooks, approximately 27 minutes before the shooting. Around that same time, the PSP sergeant called a PSP trooper and a PSP corporal, and informed them about the suspicious person, and was told they would start to look for him. Also at 5:44 p.m., the Butler ESU commander told a Butler County Sheriff's deputy about the suspicious person. 5:45 p.m., the Butler ESU commander radioed on the local ESU channel. PSP and sheriffs should be en route. If you are visual, let me know. 408, the Butler County Sheriff's deputy then radioed on the Sheriff's Office radio channel, on the lookout for a white male, young white male, blonde hair with a backpack, might be on the AGR side fence line. 409. Also at 5:45 p.m., the Butler ESU local sniper team lead texted the USSS counter sniper team leader in the Hercules 1 position on top of the southern barn behind the stage, at AGR, sending a uniformed officer to check him out. Kid learning a UND building we are in. AGR, I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking toward stage. For your information, if you want to notify SS snipers to look out. I lost sight of him. Also a bike with backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier. 410, the text included the same 2 photographs of Crooks. The USSS counter-sniper team leader responded, Roger. I'll notify teams on AGR side. 412, the USSS counter-sniper team leader later told the committee that he meant he would notify the 2 USSS counter-snipers in the Hercules 2 position on top of the northern barn behind the stage. This was the first communication to the USSS counter-snipers about Crooks, approximately 26 minutes before the shooting. The USSS counter-sniper team leader told the committee that immediately after receiving the text, a USSS protective intelligence agent called him.
I don't really think they said a color of his hair. Oh yeah, blonde hair with a backpack. Yes. Yep, absolutely right here. Blonde hair with a backpack.
And told him she was looking into the suspicious person report. 5:47 p.m. The PSP trooper, who had been told about the suspicious person around 5:44 p.m., then called 2 undercover PSP troopers stationed at the Sheets gas station and gave them a description of the suspicious person and told them to go to the AGR building to look for him. Approx. The Butler ESU commander texted the PSP sergeant stationed in the USS security room and again provided a description of the suspicious individual and attached the photographs of Crooks. The PSP sergeant shared this information with the USSS CUA's advance agent who was co-located with him in the USSS security room. 5:52 p.m. After receiving the photographs of Crooks from the PSP sergeant, the USSS CUA's advance agent sent the photographs to the USSS counter-sniper response team agent. At that same time, the USSS counter-sniper team leader, who had received the description and photographs of Crooks at 5:45, then sent a Be on the Lookout or BOLO email to all 3 other USSS counter-snipers positioned on the 2 barn roofs behind the stage. The BOLO included a description of Crooks and the photographs and stated from local police near the AGR glass building. If spotted, please notify it or go direct with. Kid learning around building we're in. Ager, I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage. For your information, if you want to notify SS snipers to look out. I lost sight of him. Also a bike with backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier. 419, 5:55 p.m. The Butler ESU commander sent a radio transmission and noted that he was near the AGR building on foot, with believed to be a rangefinder headed towards the stage. Our units lost visual of him. I believe you guys are outside of that fence if you come upon him. At 5:55, a local officer replied, Copy, there is a PSP unit by the water tower, and I sent over there and he didn't see him.
So it sure seems like the regular police had hella communication and actually brought other officers in because Secret Service didn't want or have communication, and they were concerned enough to further advance it. You can't make this shit up. And I know Kash Patel's got to be thinking, damn it, now I have more explaining to do.
420. Approx. 6 p.m. Former President Trump took the stage at the rally. 6:02 p.m. The Beaver County ESU sniper who took the photograph of Crooks radioed on the local ESU channel. All right, subject is in between the AGR buildings. He's got a backpack now. He just went towards Sheets. 422. Approx. 6:03, 6:04 p.m. The Butler ESU commander relayed this information via phone call to the PSP sergeant. In a subsequent interview, the PSP sergeant stated that he was unable to radio the PSP trooper at post 5, so he called the PSP trooper, relayed the information and told him, "Hat guy's back. He's walking between buildings. He's headed towards the Sheets." 424. 6:04 p.m. The PSP trooper then sent the two undercover troopers the photograph of Crooks. The Butler County Sheriff's deputy then radioed on the sheriff's office radio channel that the suspicious person is headed towards Sheets. 426. 6:05. 6:08 p.m. According to FBI, at approximately 6:05 p.m., Crooks climbed up an air conditioning unit onto a roof on the north end of the AGR complex. He then moved southward across the connected AGR buildings' roofs with a backpack. FBI later stated that video obtained from a local business showed the subject climb to the roof of the AGR complex at approximately 6:05 p.m. video from...
Mind you, we will never see that video. They have never seen that video. The only reason we know it exists is because they say it does. Not even Congress has been able to see any of this.
Local business, police dashcam, and police body cameras confirmed the subject's movement across multiple AGR building roofs between 6:05 p.m. and 6:08 p.m. Our overall assessment is the subject was only on the roof for approximately 6 minutes prior to the shooting between 6:05 p.m. and 6:11 p.m. 429. Approx. 6:06, 6:10 p.m. The Beaver County ESU sniper, positioned in the AGR building, who took the photograph of Crooks, went downstairs to the AGR exit to meet the law enforcement officers responding to the suspicious person to let them know suspect is around building on side of fairgrounds. One marked vehicle and one unmarked vehicle pull in together. 430 PSP testimony later confirmed that a Butler Township PD car and a PSP car came into the parking lot on the east side of AGR, and officers were seen surrounding the building. Around the same time, a USS counter-sniper in the Hercules 2 position saw two white vehicles pull into the AGR parking lot and saw a police officer emerge from one of the vehicles and begin moving urgently. 432, the USS counter-sniper then radioed on a USSS channel. Locals are working something at the 3 o'clock, approximately 200 yards out, which indicated the AGR building. 6:08:32 p.m. A Butler Township PD officer radioed on the local officer's radio channel. One's on the roof. "I have someone on the roof with white shorts," the Butler ESU commander replied on the radio and confirmed the individual on the roof was not local law enforcement. 6:09 p.m. The same Butler Township PD officer then radioed, "Got him. We don't have him in custody yet, but he's right straight in front of me by the pine tree standing upwards." 436, that officer then radioed that they lost sight of him. Trooper was chasing him, trying to follow him around the building. 437. The Butler ESU commander called the PSP sergeant to notify him that the suspicious person they'd been looking for was on the AGR roof. The PSP sergeant later stated that he then relayed that information to USS 6, between 6:10 and 17. Body camera footage from Butler Township Police show USS counter-snipers positioned on the roof of the southern barn behind the stage repositioned themselves to face toward the direction of the AGR building. Around the same time, a Butler County Sheriff's deputy radioed on the Sheriff's Office radio channel, "State police and units have AGR surrounded." 6:11:03. At approximately 6:11 p.m., a Butler roof by another officer, approximately 5 to 6 feet away with his gun pointed directly at me. I thought I was fucked because all he had to do was pull the trigger. So my hands came off and I went back down onto the concrete. So my hands came off. That officer then radioed on the local officer's radio channel, "He's armed." I saw him. He's laying down. He's got a long gun. 444, a sheriff's deputy confirmed the individual is armed and relayed on the sheriff's radio channel that other law enforcement had indicated he has a long gun. 445. Around this time, according to USS Acting Director Rowe's testimony before the committee, member of former President Trump's protective detail contacted their Pittsburgh field office counterpart to inquire about the radio update that there was an issue local law enforcement was looking into near the perimeter. 446. Uniformed officers were seen running with their hands on their weapons, and rally attendees were seen running away from the AGR building. 6:11:25, 6:11:40 p.m. At approximately 6:11:25, Crooks fired an initial volley of 3 shots, one of which struck former President Trump in the ear. At 6:11:33, a local law enforcement officer reported over the radio that shots had been fired from the AGR building roof. The USS Acting Director testified before the committee that within 3 seconds, the former president's detail rushed the stage and covered former President Trump, shielding him with their bodies. 450 Crooks fired an additional 5 shots over the next several seconds, for a total of 8 shots. Local law enforcement fired at Crooks. In a briefing with Butler County ESU, the committee learned that after Crooks fired, a Butler ESU officer between the stands and the AGR building looked in the direction of the shots that had been fired, and saw Crooks's head and part of his shoulders. That Butler ESU officer relayed to the committee that as he shouldered his weapon, he saw Crooks fire his 8th round, and saw the gas come from the muzzle. I heard the snap, and then immediately I returned fire and shot at Crooks. Other law enforcement officers who were in the vicinity also confirmed that they saw or heard an officer fire from the area where the Butler ESU officer stated he fired from, including a USS counter-sniper in the Hercules 2 position on top of the northern barn behind the stage, a USS counter-assault officer, and a PSP trooper who stated that he saw fire around, and I remember asking if he shot him or shot at him. He said yes. 454. The committee has requested a copy of the autopsy report. The FBI reported, "We have no forensic evidence indicating that either struck our subject or the subject's rifle."
Never seen enough. The autopsy report. He was cremated also. Quickly.
456. The Butler ESU officer who told the committee that he fired a round said that Crooks did not get another shot off after I engaged. 457. The Butler ESU officer said that he believed that he shot Crooks in the right shoulder or right side of his neck. After the officer shot at Crooks, the Butler ESU officer told the committee, "Went down and slowly came back up. As he was coming back up, I was ready to press the second one, and that's when Hercules took him out. He went down. He wasn't like getting down like a reaction. He slowly slumped over, my left, his right, and then slowly came back up and then got taken out." According to the USSS counter-sniper advance agent, after Crooks fired and the Butler ESU officer fired back, a USSS counter-sniper in the Hercules one position on top of the southern barn behind the stage said to his partner, "I got him," meaning he had Crooks in his sights as he pointed his weapon toward Crooks. At approximately 6:11:40, that USS counter-sniper fired a single shot that killed Crooks at 6:12 p.m. A Butler ESU sniper in the AGR building radioed on the local ESU channel, "Shooter is down." 462. Several seconds after that, a Butler County Sheriff's deputy radioed on the sheriff's radio channel. 463. Also told the committee that he heard a USS agent on former President Trump's protective detail say he's shooters down. USS agents from former President Trump's protective detail then evacuated the former president. A medic from Beaver County ESU pronounced Crooks dead at 6:25 p.m. for the committee's bipartisan inquiry. Federal departments and agencies, including DOJ and DHS, have failed to provide complete responses to the committee. DHS and USS incomplete response to the committee's requests. DHS and the USS continue to provide heavily redacted or incomplete documents and productions in response to the committee's bipartisan inquiry. On July 24, 2024, the committee requested information on planning, resources, intelligence, and related communications for each, as well as transcribed interviews with 13 USS individuals and teams connected to the Butler rally. To date, the USS has produced approximately 2,800 pages of documents to the committee. Despite not obtaining all records related to these individuals, the committee believes it was necessary to move forward and interview these individuals close in time to the assassination attempt. The committee has conducted 12 transcribed interviews with USSS personnel who were involved with the Butler rally. These interviews were with the following individuals: the USS Lead Technical Security Division Advance Lead, the USSS Counter Assault Team Advance Lead, the USSS Counter Assault Team Operator, the USSS Officer Technician serving as a Hercules II Counter Sniper, the USSS Counter Unmanned Aerial System Advance Lead, the USSS Senior Special Agent serving as the site counterpart for the July 13 Butler rally, the USSS Special Agent serving as the site agent for the July 13 Butler rally, the USSS Senior Special Agent serving as the lead advance agent for the July 13 Butler rally, the USSS Officer Technician serving as the team leader for the USSS Counter Sniper Team at the July 13 Butler rally, the USS Special Agent serving as the Intelligence Advance Agent for the July 13 Butler rally, the USSS and the USS Assistant Director of the Office of Protective Operations. The committee will continue its review. All necessary personnel are made available for interviews. The committee is releasing with this interim report the transcripts of interviews conducted to date, with redactions where appropriate, to protect individual privacy and law enforcement sensitive information. On September 11, 2024, the committee sent a letter to the USSS Acting Director raising concerns about the timing of document production and the number of redactions applied to the records. A response received from the Assistant Secretary for Legislation for DHS the same day did not adequately address the committee's concerns. The committee will continue to pursue full and complete responses to its requests, and all records necessary to complete its investigation. The committee said at a committee's requests. On July 24, 2024, the committee sent a request to FBI Director Wray seeking records and information connected to the July 13 assassination attempt. To date, the FBI has produced 27 pages of documents.
27
At the July 30th, 2020
pages. 27. It's no different than Joe Kent going to the, and yet they boasted about counterterrorism all working together. Joe Kent went to Kash Patel and was denied. I mean, they got actually into a fight. Yeah. That's in 27 pages. That's it. You're not getting no video. You're not getting, you just take our word for it and move along.
Before hearing, and in follow-up after the hearing, Ranking Member Johnson requested all 302 seconds for all USS personnel interviewed by the FBI in connection with the July 13, 2024 assassination attempt. Deputy Director Abbate testified, Senator, and we'll get those to you as soon as possible. The sake of the FBI Pittsburgh Field Office has stated publicly that, as of August 28, 2024, the FBI has conducted nearly 1,000 interviews. The FBI notified the committee that it will begin to review in camera on a rolling basis, with the first set consisting of 15 interview records. The committee will continue to seek all 302 seconds and related information from the FBI. ATF's responsiveness to the committee's requests. On July 25, 2024, the committee sent a request to ATF Director Dettelbach, seeking to interview an ATF agent who was reported to be present at the July 13 rally. To date, the committee has received an informal briefing regarding the agent's presence at the rally, but continues to seek a transcribed interview. 469 Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee and Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations letter to Christopher Wray, Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The committee's investigation into the events surrounding the July 13, 2024, assassination attempt on former President Trump remains ongoing. The following represent additional and outstanding lines of inquiry that the committee plans to pursue as a part of its ongoing investigation. 1. Information related to federal law enforcement agencies' preparations for and participation in the July 13 rally, including but not limited to: A. Information regarding USS decision not to participate in the July 13, 2024, 9 a.m. briefing for local SWAT and sniper units. B. The time at which USS first arrived at the AGR building on July 13, 2024, and total number of USS personnel present, and the total number of FBI personnel involved in the security preparations for the July 13, 2024 rally, including the total number on-site during the rally. 2. Information related to coordination between federal, state, and local law enforcement in preparation for the rally, including but not limited to: A. Information regarding the creation and implementation of the security plan presented at the July 13, 2024 briefing between Butler ESU and USS, and B. All official or unofficial, unredacted electronic communications, including but not limited to text messages, between and among USS FBI and other state or local law enforcement agents from July 11, 2024, referring or relating 2024 rally. Information related to Thomas Crooks and the FBI's investigation into the July 13, 2024, including but not limited to: A. All FD 302 FBI interview reports. B. All security footage from the Clareton Sportsman's Club in possession of the FBI. C. Information regarding all encrypted messaging applications used by Crooks, including when he used them, who he communicated with, and the content of his communications. D. Information regarding all social media platforms used by Crooks, when he used them, who he communicated with, and the content of any posts or communications. And E. Copies of Crooks' other online activity, including any communications, online posts, handwritten notes, or other statements by Crooks related to mass shooting or assassination events, including but not limited to the possible assassination of former President Trump. Information related to the investigation of the crime scene or after July 13, 2024, including but not limited to: A. Protocols for responding to and documenting a crime scene involving an assassination attempt. B. Information related to any ATF facial recognition searches of Crooks' body. C. Information related to the discovery, location, and subsequent search of Crooks' car identified after the July 13 assassination attempt, including but not limited to information about the length of time the car was present prior to the rally. D. Crooks' autopsy and toxicology report. E. Time sequence and trajectory analysis of all rounds fired at the July 13 rally. F. Crime scene photos from the AGR building roof and other points at the Butler rally site. G. The weapons, including firearms or explosives devices, bullets recovered, all firearm tracing requests connected to the assassination attempt, and all ATF Form 4473 associated with the gunman's weapon. And H. Information from subject matter experts regarding the handling of crime scenes, including crime scene expert analysis of the processing of the crime scene at the Butler grounds and AGR building. 5. Information related to intelligence regarding threats to presidential candidates and other high-ranking officials, including former President Trump, in advance of or during the July 13, 2024 rally. Information related to requests from former President Trump's campaign, his protective detail, or anyone else within USSS for additional protective resources. Information regarding the incident involving USS that occurred on September 15, 2024 in West Palm Beach, FL, including information related to threats to former President Trump between July 13, 2024 to September 15, 2024, and information related to the susted and subsequently charged. Additional transcribed interviews of federal, state, and local personnel, including without limitation, USS, DHS, FBI, and ATF officials with knowledge of the planning and securing of the Butler rally. Appendix Thas. To date, the committee has sent the below correspondence as part of its ongoing investigation. These letters are included as attachments. 1. Letter from Chairman Peters and Ranking Member Paul, Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, to Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Department of Homeland Security, and Director Christopher Wray, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice. Letter from Chairman Gary Peters and Ranking Member Rand Paul, Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and Chairman Richard Blumenthal and Ranking Member Ron Johnson, Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, to Acting Director Ronald Rowe, U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. Letter from Chairman Gary Peters and Ranking Member Rand Paul, Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and Chairman Richard Blumenthal and Ranking Member Ron Johnson, Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, to Director Christopher Wray, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice. Letter from Chairman Gary Peters and Ranking Member Rand Paul, Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and Chairman Richard Blumenthal and Ranking Member Ron Johnson, Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, to Undersecretary Kenneth Weinstein, Office of Intelligence and Analysis, Department of Homeland Security. Letter from Chairman Gary Peters and Ranking Member Rand Paul, Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and Chairman Richard Blumenthal and Ranking Member Ron Johnson, Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, to Acting Director Ronald Rowe, U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. Thomas R. Carper, Delaware Margaret Wood Hassan, New Hampshire Kirsten Sinema, Arizona Jackie Rosen, Nevada John Ossoff, Georgia Richard Blumenthal, Connecticut LaFonza R. Butler, California. Rand Paul, Kentucky Ron Johnson, Wisconsin, Department of Justice. Dear assassination attempt on former President Trump and the loss of life of an innocent bystander and injuries to several others during a campaign rally in Butler, PA on Saturday, July 13, 2024. In light of Saturday's shooting, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee is initiating a bipartisan investigation into how this was able to occur, what security, personnel, or other failures contributed to the attempt, and steps that must be taken to ensure any mistakes are avoided in the future. Accordingly, we request that the appropriate representatives of your departments, including the U.S. Secret Service, provide a briefing to members of the committee on the security failures that allowed this alarming incident to transpire. Specifically, we would like to understand the security posture of the Trump campaign rally, how the suspect was able to get this close to a Secret Service protectee and cause injury to the protectee, and what steps the department is taking to increase its protection of presidential candidates and ensure the safety of the election. We also would like information on whether any additional security requests were made by former President Trump's campaign or protective team since November 15, 2022. This briefing should occur no later than Thursday, July 25, 2024. Additionally, we request you, or your appropriate designee, appear before the committee in a public hearing on this matter as soon as possible, but no later than August 1, 2024. Finally, we request that you provide the committee with updates on this incident and the agency's responses on a rolling basis. The committee will be sending additional requests in the near future, and we urge you to respond thoroughly and promptly. If you have any questions about this request, please contact with Chairman Peter's staff and at Paul's staff, the Honorable Alejandro Mayorkas, the Honorable Christopher Away. July 15, 2024, page 2. Thank you for your attention to this request.
And still they have received nada. Only what little bit they were forced to give in hopes that, they make it go away. When I say that I have searched for this kid, it does not make sense to me. Something is not aligning. I don't know if they're using a different name, but I have searched. I found the parents, and they supposedly have 2 children, him being one of them, and that's what the news articles say. That's what the FBI said, but that's not what the reports say. There is no young children in this family. I can't make sense of it. It's like he doesn't exist. This is the only thing that is publicly available.
Matthew, why would your son want to kill the president?
Back off!
No comment.
No comment!
Were there any warning signs, Matthew?
No comment.
How's Mary holding up?
No comment.
We'll release a statement when our legal counsel advises us to do so. Until then, we have no comment. We just want to try to take care of ourselves right now. So please, give us our space.
Have the feds released the body to you yet?
That's it. Never hear another word from them. And then I have a Tucker Carlson video where he dug deep in to find any trail of Thomas Crooks, and we're gonna watch it. And I'm gonna shut the camera off and go pee real quick. I'm just saying. I'm gonna be honest. But I will leave you with Tucker Carlson. So you'll be in good hands.
These are videos the FBI has worked hard to make sure you haven't seen. They're from the Google Drive account of Thomas Crooks, the man who on July 13th, 2024, showed up at the Butler County, Pennsylvania fairgrounds and tried to assassinate the frontrunner, Donald Trump.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
That day, Thomas Crooks came within a quarter inch of destroying this country. And yet, a year and a half later, we still know almost nothing about him or why he did it. That's because, for some reason, the FBI, even the current FBI, doesn't want us to know.
What's up?
Since the start of their investigation, the FBI has claimed that Thomas Crooks acted alone. And
Guys, so does anybody think that this is Dan Flood?
he was a virtual
back to it,
ghost
right?
online with no
Here? Anybody believe that that's Dan Flood that was standing on stage with Charlie Kirk?
presence at all. Their only substantive claim about Crooks's motive was that he was a right-winger. We learned that from FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate, who said this to Congress just 1 month after the attempted assassination.
Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
The social media account Abate was describing was Crooks's YouTube comments. When the FBI made that claim, we had to take his word for it. We have no way to check, but now we do. In September, we obtained hundreds of comments from Thomas Crooks's YouTube account. Since then, we've gone to great lengths to verify that they're real. We can now confidently say they are. These are genuine, written by Thomas Crooks. But although Crooks's comments are interesting and give tremendous insight into why he did it, they're not the only story.
So Dan Flood is... you seen Charlie Kirk on stage at UVU, right? He's the guy that's standing behind on stage, gives the arm signal right before everything pops off. Not Brian Harpool, but the guy in the black t-shirt with black sunglasses on the stage with Charlie. He was standing behind his right shoulder.
The other story, in fact, the far more significant story, involves the government, the DOJ and the FBI, which have hidden from the public.
And I know Ray and I have seen somewhere where he's listed as having been ex-Secret Service. So I imagine he was part of the wipeout, or I don't know, maybe he was sent over there for that purpose. But to me, it looks like him. I feel pretty confident.
What they know about Thomas Crooks. The purpose of this report is to reveal details of Crooks's social media accounts and to confront a series of key questions. Why is the FBI keeping Crooks's views a secret? Why are they ignoring congressional subpoenas to divulge information? Why are they pretending that there's nothing to see here? And more than anything, what are they hiding? Before we present our findings, it's critical to establish how we obtained the comments and how we know they're real. In late September, we received a tip from a source. He told us he'd gained access to some of Thomas Crooks's accounts. He'd found these accounts by utilizing tools commonly used by private investigators. The key lead was Thomas Crooks's phone number. That was published in documents obtained by America First Legal. That phone number led our source to Thomas Crooks's primary email account, tmcrooks7@gmail.com. That in turn, he linked with more than a dozen other accounts. That list includes 2 foreign encrypted email accounts, AmericanGamer@gmx.com, a German website, and bcook@mailfence.com, a Belgian website. Crooks had a Snapchat, Tom_Crooks19, a Venmo account, Thomas-Crooks12, a PayPal account under the alias Rod Swanson, a Zelle registered as Thomas Crooks, as well as accounts on Discord, a Google Play account called Colossal Microwave, a Quizlet titled Thomas_Crooks, a Chess.com with the same name, and 2 disabled Quora accounts under the handles Thomas Crooks8 and Thomas Crooks3. It turns out that Thomas Crooks was hardly an online ghost. He was active, and yet federal investigators lied and told us there was no trace of him online. Some of Crooks's accounts,
and you're going to see why. They lied and said he had no social media presence, and then I don't know how he would have been like, well, you know what? We're going to let Tucker just explain it. His online presence is only from like 14 years of age, and it stops drastically way long before this supposedly happened. What 20-year-old do you know is not online? It's so weird. Everything about it is just so strange.
like his Snapchat, appear to have been fully deactivated and completely taken out of use. Some of them may have been unused or cleared by federal officials during the investigation. We don't know because the FBI wouldn't tell us. However, our source was able to retrieve all data from Thomas Crooks' deactivated YouTube account, Tom Crooks 2178, visible to other users as Tom Crooks. This account includes his search history, his watch history, and 737 public comments. Another critical account, his Google Drive, is linked to an archive of Crooks' YouTube account. That's where our source obtained the videos of Crooks dry firing a handgun in his bedroom, with paper targets on the wall behind him. But aside from the video evidence, the email addresses, and the phone number tying Crooks to the account, or the fact that most of these accounts use his actual name, there are other key details that support the authenticity of what we found. For example, this video's metadata shows it was filmed at Thomas Crooks' parents' home. And some of Crooks' YouTube comments are still available on Internet Archive sites. Crooks' YouTube channel was suspended on July 14th, 2024. That's the day after the shooting. Its offense, quote, violating YouTube's policy on violent criminal organizations. And though Crooks' comments are no longer available on YouTube, in many cases the commenters who responded to Crooks are still there, and they match what we see on the Internet Archive sites. When you click on their tags of Crooks' accounts, YouTube takes you to a page that says, this channel was removed because it violated our community guidelines. In other words, there is ample evidence to support the authenticity of these posts. Our source figured it out. So did we. But when we reached out directly to the FBI to ask why the Bureau hadn't shared any details from the account with the public, the FBI responded by questioning whether we could verify the authenticity of the account. We were confused by this, considering the authenticity is self-evident. And of course, the FBI would have known that since the day of the shooting. What exactly is the FBI hiding? Here's what we do know. The digital comments we obtained were posted between 2019 and 2020, when Thomas Crooks was between 15 and 17 years old. They show two things. First, that Thomas Crooks was not some secretive lone wolf who never warned anyone that he was planning violence, just the opposite. Years before he showed up in Butler, Crooks was leaving a detailed digital trail of violent threats, including calls for assassinations and political violence. Second, they show a man who started out as a radical Trump supporter, whose views on the president transformed, changed completely during COVID. The FBI lied about that fact and pretended that Crooks was a right-winger. At 11:35 p.m. on July 19, 2019, in response to an MSNBC video, Crooks wrote, quote, Ilhan Omar and others are invaders and should honestly be killed and their dead bodies sent back. At 1:17 a.m. on July 20th, 2019, Crooks commented on a CNN video. He said Donald Trump was the literal definition of patriotism. 7 hours later, he commented on an MSNBC video. He wrote, I hope a quick, painful death to all the deplorable immigrants and anti-Trump congresswomen who don't deserve anything this country has given them. That evening, on a separate MSNBC video, he wrote, quote, every one of the Trump-hating Democrats deserve to have their heads chopped off and put on stakes for the world to see what happens when you fuck with America. These sorts of comments continued for months and became increasingly violent. The following day, Crooks responded to a CBS Evening News video about the squad saying this, quote, this is going to be blatantly racist, but I hope Trump has these people murdered. Crooks openly called for dictatorship and putting, quote, Hispanics back in their place. He warned that if Democrats win in 2020, quote, they won't be in there for long because unlike the Dems, we have guns and lots of them. In one comment, Crooks noted that, quote, 50 million Americans with AR-15s will make quick work of any blockades the government can put in to protect the White House. He left multiple references to Mao Zedong's famous line, the only real political power comes from the barrel of a gun. On September 30th, 2019, Crooks responded to comments about a potential civil war, saying this, most rioters don't bring assault rifles and body armor like we would, and we wouldn't be going to the streets, we'd be going to Washington. At this point, one user named Hyperpandas responded saying, quote, law enforcement will thank you for grouping up and being so visible. It'll make your arrest so much simpler. Crooks responded saying, cops can't arrest me if they're all dead. Before adding, even an untrained man with an AR-15 is dangerous. You think Adam Lanza or any school shooter trained? Nope. If you navigate to that YouTube page today, you can still see identical contextual comments and people referring to Thomas Crooks, including one user who wrote this, you were on YouTube threatening to shoot government officials. I sure hope the FBI is monitoring social media for violent nutcases. That exchange is still available on Internet Archive websites. But the FBI didn't see that before the shooting? That's hard to believe. On various occasions, Crooks openly said things like, Mueller should be hanged along with the rest of the Democrats involved in that witch hunt, and I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews, like the ones who booed Trump, and blasting their useless brains out with an AR.
I am live. Say hi.
Hello.
This is, oh, hold on.
Oh my
This
god.
is Baby Duck. Say hi.
Hello. I love you, mommy.
I love you. Yes. Hmm? Okay. Sorry, guys.
And yet, in early 2020, Crooks seemed to change radically. On January 23rd of that year, he referred to, quote, Trump's stupidity. He began to mock the concept of the deep state. He suggested it was a code word used by Trump supporters for, quote, anyone who disagrees with the
She calls me Mama Duck. She's Baby Duck. She is the youngest.
right wing. Suddenly, he sounded like an MSNBC commentator. In February of 2020, he called out Trump supporters as, quote, too brainwashed to realize how dumb you are. I mean, literally, you guys sound like a cult at times. That same day, he called Trump and his supporters, quote, racist. It was an amazing transformation. That April, during the peak phase of the coronavirus lockdowns, Crooks wrote, quote, it seems that you people don't understand that sometimes public safety comes before your personal rights. Are you not willing to quarantine one member of your family to save the rest? If so, you are not a patriot, and you aren't protecting anything. Around this time, the new left-wing version of Thomas Crooks became very critical of conservative media. He said at one point, quote, going to a Chinese New Year's party in America isn't putting you at risk for coronavirus, because, believe it or not, viruses don't spread through race like Tucker Carlson probably told you. That May, the state officials across the country overhauled election systems to promote.
What are the chances that the bits and pieces that he does fine? He actually talks about Tucker.
Mail-in voting. Crooks attacked Republican concerns about voter fraud as, quote, ignorant. 4 months later, in August 2020, his tone had shifted even further to the left. He said, quote, I believe the outcome will be irrelevant. In response to the same video, Thomas Crooks issued what sounds a lot like a digital manifesto. Quote, in my opinion, the only way to fight the government is with terrorism-style attacks. Sneak a bomb into an essential building and set it off before anyone sees you. Track down any important people or politicians, military leaders, etc., and try to assassinate them. Any sort of head-to-head fight is suicide, and even ambush or surprise attacks likely aren't going to end well. These remarks were especially notable because they came at the final phase of Crooks' YouTube commenting. At that point, a new character emerged into the conversation, a user named Willie Tepes, who started pressuring Crooks to commit violence. For example, quote, if a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes from the barrel of a gun.
We know he's real because Ray found him on Discord, I believe, right, Ray? But is it not strange? Because the shooting didn't happen until 2024. He just went offline for 17 years old to 20. Yeah, my bad. Telegram, yeah. So no online presence whatsoever. I mean, that sounds so shady. It sounds like the Fed slap that was given for Tyler Robinson.
We have more guns than they do. There is no way we can avoid a war at this point, so you better just get used to the idea. We have nothing to lose and everything to win. And the alternative, a global police state, is unacceptable. Nothing in life is simple, but that is no argument against doing it. So who is this Willie Tepes? Unfortunately, we don't know. The FBI hasn't made any mention of him in public, although they certainly know he exists. Just days after the shooting, somebody screenshotted Tepes' YouTube account page, despite the fact he had very few followers. To the extent that he can be traced online now, you can find his username being used on a foreign Antifa website. Those sites link him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist group by the US State Department. That's all we know. We do know, however, that Crooks' online footprint abruptly ends after his encounter with this mysterious figure, Willie Tepes. Regardless of whoever Willie Tepes is or was and what his motives may have been, who he may have been working for, there is no...
So in 2020. So for 4 years, the boy went with no online communication or nothing. It doesn't make sense. You can't make that make sense. I assure you that the William Tepes guy, his online presence did not stop and is still continuing on to this day.
doubt that Crooks was ripe for recruitment by someone. From early 2019 to mid-2020, as his political views were evolving, Crooks searched for Trump more than 700 times online. He also searched for Jack Ruby, the man who assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald. He then submitted queries for craziest chemical reactions, cars running over protesters, best places for mass shooting El Paso, Trump Civil War, Orlando shooting reaction, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb, how to make napalm, how to make a Molotov cocktail, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, and sniper in Dallas shooting. He also searched for American Nazi Party, German national anthem 1933-1945, Hitler speeches with subtitles, neo-Nazis, and quote, why gays need to go. Hate to brag, but we're pretty confident this show is the most... That around the same time that Thomas Crooks was making these searches and posting overt threats of violence against public figures on YouTube, the FBI was issuing contracts to private sector tech surveillance firms to harness the power of mass data collection tools that would monitor social media for people just like Thomas Crooks. It's hard to imagine that Thomas Crooks, who was making these posts publicly and in his own name, had not been identified and looked at closely by federal law enforcement. In fact, it's impossible to imagine. What do we know? Well, we know that the FBI had access to these YouTube comments, and rather than giving us valuable information about them, giving us a sense of why Thomas Crooks did what he did, they used a selective read of those comments to lie about what Thomas Crooks was thinking. 2.5 weeks after the attack on July 30th, a source familiar with the investigation told CNN that, quote, federal investigators are looking into a YouTube account possibly connected to Crooks in which the user espoused political violence as well as anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes. Well, of course, it wasn't possibly connected to Thomas Crooks, as the FBI knew full well it was Thomas Crooks' account. There was never any question about that. And yet the same day, the FBI's then deputy director made the same dishonest claim before Congress. The week previous, then FBI Director Christopher Wray publicly questioned whether Trump was even shot.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear.
In February 2025, the New York Post reported that, quote, the FBI has obstructed efforts to solve the mystery of why Thomas Matthew Crooks, who left no manifesto, did what he did. And this fact, said the Post, left local law enforcement as well as Crooks' former friends, classmates, and teachers frustrated. The level of lying and obstruction is shocking. Less than a month after the shooting, Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a former police officer, traveled to Butler to conduct his own investigation into what happened. When he arrived, he discovered a disturbing fact. The FBI released Crooks' body for cremation 10 days after July 13th. This wasn't known to the public until Higgins arrived in Butler on August 5th, when the coroner told the congressman, quote, he would never have released Crooks' body to the family for cremation or burial without specific permission from the FBI. The timing of Crooks' cremation is notable. The day Crooks' body was burned was also the day the House Homeland Security and Oversight Committees had begun their investigations into the shooting. The fact the body was cremated made it impossible for investigators outside the FBI to verify the coroner and autopsy report. You can't do a new tox screen because the body doesn't exist. According to Higgins, quote, this action by the FBI can only be described by any reasonable man as an obstruction to any following investigative effort. Another notable detail is that photos from the day after the shooting show an FBI agent hosing down the site where Crooks died. High-level intelligence officials and congressional sources told us this is very strange, and that the FBI usually hires out crime scene cleanup to third-party contractors. But in this case, they did it themselves, leaving no blood and no tissue for anyone else to analyze. In the photo, the agent's shirt says he's from the Technical Hazards Response Unit, a unit that collects traditional forensic evidence contaminated with hazardous materials. After the shooting, the FBI sent Crooks' phone to the Bureau's laboratory at Quantico, Virginia. Agents there were able to open it in less than 40 minutes using technology from an Israeli tech firm called Celebrate. According to the Post, FBI officials who served under President Joe Biden accessed Crooks' phone, computer, and his encrypted messaging apps in Belgium, New Zealand, and Germany. Yet none of the online activity the FBI has discovered was referred to in any way in the final congressional report that was released in December of 2024.
By the way, why do we still know nothing about that guy in Butler? What's going on?
That was a good question, a question that most people thought would be answered by the new administration. Within weeks of retaking office, Donald Trump told the New York Post's Miranda Devine that he had, quote, ordered the Secret Service on Friday to provide him every bit of information about his two would-be assassins.
You've had 2 assassination attempts, one obviously where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler, and we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Ash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job.
You're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is.
But his people insist there's nothing there, and they don't seem interested in finding out more.
How come we don't have more information on the assassination attempts on President Trump?
There's 2 reasons, 2 open, ongoing prosecutions. But we have personally invested our time in making sure.
If I ever get in any kind of trouble, whether it be danger or not, please do not contact these 2 dumbasses.
That we have looked at any possible international connections to terrorism and adversaries alike. And we've both been down to Quantico. We've both done the laboratory testing. We've both seen the explosives analysis. We've both seen the firearm and physically held it. We are all in on these investigations.
Are we going to be surprised at what you learned?
You know what, Maria? Cash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. And whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. In some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there.
What a baffling thing to say. Thomas Crooks is dead, of course. There was no trial against Thomas Crooks. And by the way, they weren't misspeaking. This wasn't an accident. We know that because the director of the FBI said the same thing once again under oath in front of Congress in September.
Huh? Oh, man.
What did you show?
I didn't show anything.
These 2. And we have looked at any possible international connections to terrorism and adversaries alike. And we've both been down to
I didn't show anything.
Don't. And it should come back on.
before I fix my chat. Okay, well, I guess we're not gonna watch that. Yeah. Yeah. Odd. I feel like I'm being watched. It's nothing. It's on YouTube. It's Fox. It was a Fox video. And Tucker Carlson.
That's so.
Yeah.
Don't. Loki.
Just.
I'll link it in the description.
I don't get it. I definitely feel like I'm being watched, no doubt. Damn it, huh? Yeah. I mean, they allowed me to come back, I guess. I just had to. We'll see afterwards if I have any strikes, so. It's odd. It's a Fox News report. I mean, and I'm allowed to say that if I ever get in trouble or need help, don't call them two dumbasses. And I fucking mean it. So if they want to boot my live stream because they're inept, so be it. Yeah. Yeah, that's why they keep me down in an algorithm. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't even get this YouTube video out about something so controversial because it is. They know that they're keeping the truth from us. Congress knows they're keeping the truth from us. I cannot believe they just did that. It's pissing me off. Like, seriously. It's still... They're hindering my speech. How can I continue? Anything I show, they're going to boot me. What about the ones that I had prepared? It is going to be the same thing. It's not pretty. It's going to show the actual guy.
Which one?
OBS.
Great.
All right, well, we'll give it a try.
Maybe not the same video, though.
Those who shared images of him.
My name is Thomas Matthew.
Oh. I cannot believe they just did that.
Took part in a Fox Nation special.
It's Fox
Goes
News.
out
Should I
to
not
you.
do it?
How are you doing? Where are you in your healing?
So this is the guy that died's wife and 2 daughters.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. You know, I'm really right at the beginning where I was back a year ago. You know, we really haven't healed that much. You know, we have no answers. So, you know, I miss him just like I did last year.
And Corey was not only a firefighter and a hero, and your husband, he was also a father of your daughters, and I think they are standing behind you.
Yeah, sadly.
Yes, they are. This is Allison and Kaylee.
Hi, Allison. Hi, Kaylee. Helen. Again, our hearts go out to you. I see the necklace across you're wearing around your neck, St. Christopher, and also your.
So I'm going to keep stopping that so I don't get in trouble. And yeah, collateral damage. Family devastated. Just like that. I will say this, that the 2 victims that survived and this family right here is suing the government currently. Well, it certainly makes me wonder how tomorrow's episode's gonna go, because we got on and got all the federal documents for the other guy in Florida that was sentenced to life.
Yes.
your husband's fingerprints. You're celebrating your 30th anniversary this week. A lot going on. You talk about you're not healing, and as part of the reason it's so hard to heal is that you haven't had a lot of answers. You haven't been able to have closure because our government is not giving you answers. Do you believe that this man, this boy, Thomas Crooks, acted alone? Do you feel like the government is giving you any insight into that?
You know, it's hard to tell. In one way, I do believe he acted alone. He could have.
Right.
I do believe it was a Secret Service error. I believe.
Shut your mouth. No, ma'am. You're going to get us kicked. I'm going to have to start showing on Rumble or something because this is absurd. You cannot say nothing or show nothing.
That they failed my husband.
And I'm not even monetized.
It's been miserably. And I want answers from them.
It is kind of remarkable. We're learning that there were 6 agents who have been suspended.
Yeah.
Of course, the director of the agency resigned last year after the disastrous hearings in Congress. Do you feel like that Congress is getting to the bottom of these questions, and do you believe that that more people should actually face consequences for the mistakes that happened that day?
Suspending them when my husband was killed. You know, that's not punishment. No.
Has anyone reached out to you at all, Helen, to try to walk you through what happened? Are you having conversations?
I will say that I actually have the video of them trying to get help for her husband, but I suspect I cannot play it. I was going to, but probably won't get through it. I'm looking for the 2 fellers that gave an interview.
Is it a fight every day? Is it a struggle every day?
It's struggle every day.
Yeah.
It's painful here and there.
For the first time, David Dutch and Jim Copenhaver are sharing how they survived that assassination attempt against Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Jim, when did you realize something was wrong?
When I saw part of my sleeve go away, and I heard, I heard it distinctly. And that I turned around to my friend and I said, I think I was shot.
Copenhaver, who is 74 and now walks with a cane, was shot twice. One bullet tore into his tricep. The other, which pierced his abdomen, is still lodged in his body.
Feels like somebody's taking a cigarette and burning right in the middle of my leg.
Attorneys for both men say this video shows them getting shot. They were both behind Trump at the time. Copenhaver in the white long sleeve, Dutch further to the right in the American flag t-shirt.
It was like getting hit with a sledgehammer right in the chest. There was chunks of bleacher and shrapnel flying all around until he finished firing.
Firefighter Corey Compentori was shot and killed trying to protect his family.
But because of failures by the Secret Service, the shooting was not prevented.
Congress and the Secret Service are now investigating how that would-be assassin was able to get up onto a rooftop with an AR-15 about 400 feet from the president and start shooting before being killed by a counter-sniper. Both men plan on suing the federal government and others for negligence. Attorneys for the men speaking out on the Secret Service's response.
And I hope all 3 families make out well. I can't replace their health or their loved one. They're not going to be held accountable any other way.
It's pretty evident that there have been some failures, possibly catastrophic failures on the part of the Secret Service as an organization.
Did the Secret Service fail former President Trump and fail you that day?
Oh, yes, big time. The whole security setup was before.
It was put together too quickly, and procedures weren't followed.
Former President Trump recently returned to Butler for another rally.
You went to the most recent Butler rally. Why?
Because I don't want to be hiding from what happened. I just trying to get on with going through my daily life again.
Copenhagen and Dutch say what surprised them the most, the amount of letters, prayers, and support they've received.
They don't know me. I mean, it's just amazing.
I don't even know how to reach out and thank them for all the prayers, well wishes, and everything.
That's got to be pretty emotional, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Both men say they work.
At least our citizen people care. And what else can you say to that? I do hope that they get some kind of closure with, because nobody's going to ever get answers, clearly. We're never going to get answers. They are protecting that at all cost. And in my opinion, it is because it is just like the last attempt and the one before that. And they can kick me off here all they want and shut down my live stream for telling the truth, or my opinion, allegedly. I think it only lends to my credibility, my thought that the whole world is looking at this and is suspicious of it at this point, and has been for a while. So I am certainly not going to be able to get into the other video, and hopefully once I get off of here, I'll figure out what the issue was. I have pretty much every document on Ralph in Florida. And it's mind-blowing to go through these documents and hear the prosecution just outright tried to hinder him having any kind of defense. He wasn't allowed to bring in nothing. There was just, it is just like any other circumstance with any of this. Perhaps he wasn't meant to live either. I don't know. But it's all very weird. All very weird. Athena Strand, I know as far as Athena Strand, Tanner Horner, the jury's deliberating. We're waiting on that. I know I've seen a couple more videos come up on David Burke, but nothing new in court. And obviously, we're still waiting on Tyler Robinson. But tomorrow we are going to get into what Ray and I found on these files as far as that Florida attempted to be shooter. And we'll see where we go with it. I'm sorry, guys. I tried. I hope everybody has a good night. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, and I will see you again tomorrow. Good night.